Well, good afternoon, everybody. 3:05 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive on this Wednesday, May 29th. That's right, it's Wednesday. Feels like a Tuesday for some reason, but it's still Wednesday. And we're going to be with you all the way till 7 o'clock, bringing you the latest information as we breathlessly await the verdict from the jury in the New York Trump trial. And there have been new developments in the last few minutes. I mean, the way it started today was they began with reading the instructions to the jury. The instructions to the jury were 56 pages long, and it took more than an hour for the judge to read them out loud in court. And so then the jury went off for about 4 hours and change and began deliberations. They asked for some testimony from this person and that person, and they're going back over some of that stuff. And then just a few moments ago, they sent out a note saying, "We want you to reread the instructions to us." So, I mean, I guess this is what happens when you send in stuff that's so complex that nobody can understand it. But apparently, I'm guessing that the two lawyers in the room, there are two lawyers on the jury that are now deliberating, may have said, none of this makes any sense to us. How can this thing be? And I'm going to get to what these instructions did, because Judge Juan Merchan, once again, has put his thumb on the scale of justice in favor of the prosecution. And Trump said today, the way the instructions to the jury were written, it'd be very hard for anybody to come out okay in this particular trial. Again, he railed in that echoey hallway in New York outside the courtroom.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job. And it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace. And I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. It's a very disgraceful situation. Every single legal scholar and expert said this is no case. It shouldn't be brought, and it certainly could have been brought 7 years ago, not in the middle of a presidential election. It was all done by Joe Biden. This judge contributed to Joe Biden, and far worse than that, but I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. Far worse than that, by 1,000 times worse than that. The worst I've ever heard, but I can't talk about it. It'll be talked about, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But it'll be talked about in the history books. What's happening here is weaponization at a level that nobody's seen before, ever. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I'll stay around here. This is 5 weeks. And 5 weeks of really essentially not campaigning, although I took a big lead in the polls over the last few weeks. Something's going on. Because I think the people of this country see that this is a rigged deal. It's a weaponized deal for the Democrats to hit their political opponent. For Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States. He's destroying our country. He's letting millions of people from jails, from prisons, from insane asylums, from mental institutions, drug dealers pour in.
Pour in. Yeah, well, he went on to make a regular campaign speech, but he says, look, the way these instructions to the jury were written, it's going to be very hard to get a good outcome here. Now, I should mention that the judge now has dismissed the jury for the day. He did not apparently read an hour's worth of instructions to them. He suggested that when they come back tomorrow, they focus on certain testimony that they had requested earlier. And so it's done for today. There's got to be any more deliberation today. And the jury, by the way, is not being sequestered. So they'll go home now and figure, come back tomorrow. I think they start at 9:30. Which would be 8:30 our time tomorrow. Now, about these instructions to the jury, there's a really, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's that apparently the way the instructions to the jury were written, Judge Merchan said you don't have to be in unanimous agreement for there to be conviction in this particular case. I'll let smarter people than me try to explain it. Here's Jonathan Turley.
There's this other crime out there, and the prosecutors have suggested 3 different crimes, and he told the jury, you don't have to agree on what actually occurred. So you could have a jury that split 4, 4, and 4 on what actually occurred, what that other crime was, and the judge will treat it like a unanimous verdict.
Okay, here's Andrew McCarthy with a more detailed explanation.
What's supposed to happen in a criminal trial is a prosecutor has to prove every element of an offense beyond a reasonable doubt. So every crime, which is a creature of some statute, has different elements. One is a mental element, and then there are the things that you have to do to commit the crime. So like with bank robbery, you have to, take money by force from a financial institution and do it intentionally. And those are the things the prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. What this judge is telling this jury in this kind of make it up as you go along New York State prosecution of federal law is that when they get to the end of the rainbow and we get to the elements of the offense, the jury doesn't have to be in agreement on what it is exactly that Trump did or what he was trying to commit or conceal when he allegedly falsified his business records. So they're going to give the jury a menu of choices and tell the jury that some of them may believe that this was the criminal objective. Some of them may believe something else was, but that they don't have to be unanimous on that. I actually think that's pretty outrageous, but in this case, I'm not sure it makes the top 10 of outrageous.
Well, I'm in agreement. I mean, the judge just has done the most unusual thing. Look, if there's a conviction here, Trump will have the right to appeal. And if he appeals, I believe there is so much reversible error in this particular trial that the verdict will be thrown out, but one way or the other. Now, we are now being told that the former president may stop by the microphones on the way out. We're watching. Chris, watch very carefully what's happening there outside the courtroom for me while I'm going on to tell the rest of this story, because we want to hear what's on his mind today after the bizarre developments of the trial this afternoon. What's interesting about this is that while, we're paying rapt attention to the trial and people who follow the news are very much involved in listening to this thing, it's been observed by CNN and others that Americans are seem to be ignoring it. I mean, nothing that has happened in this trial, as sordid as some of the testimony has been, has moved the needle against Trump at all, not one whit. Here's Harry Ensign over at CNN.
All right, let's take a look here. Think Trump did something illegal in the New York hush money case. I've been interested in whether or not these numbers would change at all during the course of this trial. Simply put, John, they have not. Pre-opening statements think Trump did something illegal, 46%. After the direct examination of Michael Cohen by the prosecution, look at where we are now, 46%. The percentage of Americans who think that the charges are very serious, in fact, dropped from 40% to a little bit more than 35% during the course of this trial. So, yes, perhaps things might have changed with those 12 jurors, but when it comes to the larger American public, there has been no change. I think the question is, what's exactly cooking here? Why hasn't there been much of a change? Well, folks like you and me, real news junkies, might be paying really close attention to what's going on. The fact is, most Americans don't really care that much. So closely following news about economy inflation, that's number one at 65%. Look at immigration, 52%. Election legitimacy, 49%. Abortion, 47%. All the way down on this list of issues tested by the Ipsos Knowledge Panel is Trump's court cases at 42%, significantly less than economy and inflation. The fact is, John, when we're looking at these numbers, what we see is Americans' minds aren't changing, and a big reason why Americans' minds aren't changing is at this particular point, John, they are tuned out.
They're tuned out. They're not paying attention, by and large. I think he's right about that. I think he is right about it. And by the way, just one little side note on his analysis about the issue of abortion being at 47%. I always think that number gets misinterpreted because, people on both sides of the abortion issue pay close attention. So when you say the issue of abortion is 47% of Americans are concerned about it, that could be people who are pro-life who are concerned about the issue of abortion, or that could be people who are pro-abortion that they believe about that so-called women's right to choose. They believe that, and they those numbers don't necessarily mean that it is an issue that plays well for Democrats entirely. I think that number gets misread a lot. There are a lot of people who are concerned about the issue of abortion on both sides of the equation. But I digress. Let's go back to the trial. What's going to happen if there is some kind of verdict? Well, apparently the White House was asked about that today. The president's out making a speech to literally a handful of people, and Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about that on the way to the event on Air Force One.
How much attention is the president paying to the Trump trial as they begin deliberations?
I have to be pretty honest with you. I've not talked to the president about that. This is going to be an important day. Obviously, the campaign is going to have more to share. The president, and I said this yesterday a couple times when I was asked this question in various ways, that the president's focused on the American people, delivering for the American people. You'll hear him talk about some of that today. Again, the campaign will speak to that since a campaign event. That's his focus. I just have not. I'm not focused. I asked him that question.
Thank you. Do you think he'll make reference to it in his remarks today?
I think the president's going to be focused on the American people today.
Or at least a handful of them. Because, I mean, it's interesting. Trump goes somewhere, even in deep blue territory, and, tens of thousands of people show up. He goes to an event here, and I guarantee you it's in a big gymnasium, and they have set it up so that you can't tell that the gymnasium is widely empty. Nobody shows up for the guy. So there we have it. Again, we are waiting to see if the president has anything to say as he exits the courtroom this afternoon. But apparently, the jury has asked for copies of the testimony of both David Pecker and Michael Cohen. And they're trying to go back over the key things that have been said. It seems to me this is a jury that's asking a lot of questions, which suggests to me that they seriously are going to be taking some time to go through all this stuff. So it may be several days. Like I say, the jury's gone home for today. They return at 9:30 East Coast time. That's 8:30 tomorrow, Middle Tennessee time, to continue their deliberations. But I don't think it's going to come back anytime soon. If I were the foreman of the jury, the first thing I would do, and that's probably why they don't let me get on a jury, is I say, okay, let's have a gut check here. Who thinks he's guilty? Who thinks he's innocent? Just let's see where we are. I would want to do that before I made one step into, well, what do we need to look at then? Okay, so they're looking at stuff. They're looking at testimony. They've asked the judge to reread the instructions. He did not do that when he dismissed them. So now the lawyers are all having a conversation in the courtroom about how do we answer this request for testimony, and then what about the rereading of the instructions? They're trying to get some guidance from how the attorneys want to proceed, but it doesn't matter because Judge Juan Merchan will do what he dang well pleases, and if past his prologue, what he'll be doing is putting his thumb on the scale in favor of the prosecution at every turn. It's unbelievable what a sham this trial has become. It certainly has become that. Now, I think that when you look at this whole situation, the one thing that I'm sort of surprised by is that the White House, who has insisted from day one, well, we don't have anything to do with this. Well, we know that's not true. We know that at some point, all of the people who have brought charges against Donald Trump have had visits to the White House. We know they've met with White House counsel. We know they've met with other people. We know that has happened. So their fingerprints are all over. Not their fingernails. Their fingerprints are all over this thing. And now comes word that the president will respond. Well, I thought it wasn't political. I thought that this was just justice being carried out in an unbiased way. That there were no political elements. By doing this, they're doing the thing they did yesterday with Robert De Niro. That was a campaign event with Robert De Niro out there looking like a wacko. I think that one backfired on him big time. And now the word that the president will have something to say about this when there is a verdict, I think is, again, evidence that this is truly political, and it always was from the very beginning. I know you're not surprised to hear that, but I mean, they are revealing themselves. They're doing the things that point to how political this whole thing has become. So we're watching the last few minutes. We'll watch to see if Trump has anything to say on the way out of the courtroom, and we will bring you up to date on that if we can. But otherwise, we got a lot of other stuff to talk about today. Right now it's 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
President Biden doesn't mince words when talking about former president and current political opponent Donald Trump. If you drive a Nissan, they have an announcement that may be for you. I don't know if you'll like it. Plus, major storms around the nation, canceling flights everywhere. We'll have those stories right here, 3:30 Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
There's Mac Maury with all the stories. Also, the star of the runaway hit segment, Mac Maury's Wide, Weird, Wacky, Weird, Wonderful, Weird World of Sports. A lot of weirdness.
You mentioned weird.
Yeah, I say it's weird. Yeah, that's at 5:25 each day. It's where we talk just briefly about the world of sports. Scotty Scheffler, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
they dropped the charges against that guy.
Those.
I think I said that at some point saneness will reveal and will reveal itself, and they'll do something. I mean, because it seems like to me this was a pretty simple misunderstanding, and some cops who were amped up because they were at the scene of a fatal crash. That happens, and cops will tell you that happens. And I think they overreacted, and I think they didn't realize what they were doing, or nor who they were messing with. But at the same time, I don't think he did anything wrong. I mean, I've looked at several pictures of that whole scene, and I have a hard time understanding what the problem was. I think he misunderstood, or there was confusion.
Yeah.
Over directions that he gave him, and it's raining. It's chaos there. I mean, traffic is backed up. It's a nightmarish scene, and it's easy to understand how somebody could get a little confused in a situation like that. Anyway, one way or the other, the charges have now been dropped, and that matter is done. He didn't do anything wrong as far as I can tell. I think his attorney was right about that, and they said, unless the charges are dropped, we're going to trial on this. And I think they would have prevailed, but at least now they've made a decision not to go forward. So anyway, there's all that.
If you haven't seen the video, it is like what the cop does is a little bit comical now. Looking back at it, just jumping on the car, being dragged. It's like, okay, chill out, man.
Chill out,
relax,
dude. Just really honestly. And by the way, there's Chris Weber pushing all the blinky buttons as he does every day, and always a pleasure to work with Chris. I want to bring this story up because it's been talked about a lot. That is the Justice Samuel Alito flag controversy. First of all, you should know that Justice Samuel Alito told lawmakers on Wednesday that he will not recuse himself from upcoming cases related to the 2020 election because it was reported that flags connected to Stop the Steal effort were flown outside his home. The Alito wrote in a pair of letters to members of Congress he had nothing to do with the flags that were flown over his home, including an upside-down American flag. He said his wife, Martha Ann, flew as part of a dispute. He said, the two incidents you cite do not meet the condition for recusal, and I therefore have an obligation to sit for the cases. I have nothing to do, listen to this, guys, you'll love this. I had nothing whatsoever to do with the flying of that flag. I was not even aware of the upside-down flag until it was called to my attention. As soon as I saw it, I asked my wife to take it down. But for several days, she refused. I think every man who's married understands this, especially if you're married to a very strong-willed individual. Good man, wife. And Alito wrote nothing that they own. He noted that they jointly own their home and that she has a legal right to use the property as she sees fit. Yeah, so it always come down to a legal assessment. In their, I guess when you're the Supreme Court justice, everything gets looked at through the lens of what the law says. But he's saying, hey, she owns this house too. I can't tell her not to do that. So anyway, he says he's not going to do it. And then there's an interesting thing from the Washington Post I thought was very fascinating about this. The Washington Post, on a story that ran Saturday, I had not seen this, said that it had been told the story in January 21 about the flag being upside down and chose not to write about it because it appeared Alito's wife was responsible and that it was not clear the neighborhood argument was over politics. In one sense, the Post story's appearance on Saturday could be seen as acknowledgement that the Post should have been handled differently in 2021, but that apparently the current executive editor wasn't there at the time. But it is a surprising admission from a major news organization that we looked at it, we thought it wasn't a story, and we decided not to print it. So they're not saying that the decision was wrong, and they're not saying that they should have. And of course, they'll never do that. But one way or the other, it was looked at the time. It was known to people back then, and that the Washington Post, the vaunted Washington Post, looked at it and said, there is no story here. And so this is something that has been well known for some time and got brought up because they're looking to, I think the Democrats are looking to do anything they can to diminish the Supreme Court in the eyes of the people and trying to sort of dirty up. They've worked on Clarence Thomas forever. Now they're going after Samuel Alito. I mean, they'll do everything they can to try to diminish the credibility of the court because they know there's a major decision pending with regard to Trump and immunity. So we'll continue to watch that. But I thought very interesting stuff there. 30 minutes now past the hour.
I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 78 degrees, partly sunny in Music City. Got a full weather forecast. That traffic report coming up in 5 minutes. In Philadelphia today, President Biden and Vice President Harris together kicking off a new national outreach program aimed at shoring up softening support among black voters, a critical group for the president's reelection bid. He had tough words for his predecessor and political rival Donald Trump. Karen Travers with details.
President Biden at a campaign rally said Donald Trump poses a greater threat in a second term than he did in his first.
It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in the sky.
The president slamming his political opponent, calling Trump, quote, clearly unhinged.
I'll be damned if I can let Donald Trump turn America into a place filled with anger and resentment and hate.
And in that hush money trial that's still in deliberation, the jury taking a break for the rest of the day, they did send 2 notes this afternoon asking to rehear the testimony and have instructions. Nissan urging the owners of about 84,000 older vehicles to stop driving them because their Takata airbag inflators have an increased risk of exploding in a crash and hurling dangerous metal fragments. Today's urgent request comes after one person in Nissan was killed by an exploding front passenger inflator, and as many as 58 people were injured since 2015. Nissan said the do not drive warning covers certain 02 through 06 Sentra small cars, as well as some 02 through 04 Pathfinder SUVs, and 02 and 03 Infiniti QX4 SUVs. The company says owners should contact their dealer to set up an appointment to have inflators replaced for free. Nissan also is offering free towing to dealers and, in some locations, mobile service and loaner cars available. And hundreds of flights canceled again in the U.S. because of thunderstorms hitting a major airline hub. Alex Stone.
Thunderstorms have brought extreme wind in Dallas and Houston, caused problems for passengers on mainly American and Southwest Airlines on Tuesday. Over 1,100 flights were canceled in the U.S., mainly because of those storms, and 7,600 flights were delayed. Today, again, Dallas-Fort Worth is leading the nation in flight cancellations with more rain hitting the area. American Airlines has the most canceled flights today of any airline in the world.
And that is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair all the way till 7 o'clock. The jury has gone home for the day in New York. They are having some continuing discussions about how they will answer the jury's questions and which parts of the judge's 56 pages of instructions do they want to have read back to them. These instructions are so convoluted, I'm not surprised that they have questions, especially since there are two lawyers in the room who are looking at that and probably like every other lawyer in the country scratching their head on how in the world can this work. We will need to understand a few things about what you instructed us on. So we'll find out how that goes, but testimony expected to begin tomorrow. Deliberations expected to begin tomorrow again at about 9:30 East Coast time, 8:30 our time. All right, I want to move to the border. Interesting couple of stories here. Biden administration released a suspect on the terrorist watch list into the United States twice and even gave him a date for an asylum hearing. How about that? Are we surprised? Report comes after other instances of those on the terror watch list have been caught attempting to enter the U.S. As of mid-May, 81 of those on the terrorist watch list were recorded as attempting to cross the border illegally. That's pretty interesting stuff. And apparently in this particular case, a guy named the name of Carwin, an alleged member of the designated terrorist group Hezb-e-Islam, were arrested for a third time in April and gave him a date. They gave him a date for an asylum hearing. He was caught on the border in 2023 and released, then arrested later in 2024, freed again with an asylum hearing date in 2025. Mohammed Carwin, 48, was caught by authorities while illegally crossing the border in 2023, released to the interior of the U.S. because the Border Patrol did not have biometric information that connected him with the watch list. Arrested again in 24, Carwin was brought before an immigration judge and freed again with an asylum hearing of 2025. This is according to folks who spoke to NBC News. Released again because ICE prosecutors withheld evidence of Carwin's possible ties to terrorism because the information was classified, telling the judge only that he was a flight risk. And the judge ignored him, let him go again. Oh, this is insane. This is the kind of stuff, there's probably a lot more of this kind of stuff than we know. We know that for sure. Chuck Schumer has said this before, but it's being reported again that Chuck Schumer has a plan for all of the people who've come across the border illegally. And probably one of the underreported stories of the last year or so. Chuck Schumer has said publicly again that he has a plan for those people who came across the border illegally, and that is trying to make them U.S. citizens, which would make them eligible to vote.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are.
I can't believe he says that. I can't believe he's willing to say the quiet part out loud. And that's why Democrats don't want President Joe Biden to secure the border, because they eventually hope to turn all these people into American citizens and voters, which is why I got to tell you, not only is this presidential election important for that reason, so are the Senate races. And I got to tell you, you have a lot more Democrats that are running for re-election this particular cycle in the Senate than there are Republicans. And it was looking like, well, that's going to be an easy turn. All we got to do is, one or two people, to flip, and you've got control of the Senate again. But you know what? The Democrats know this as well. They put a lot of money, and all of the incumbents and all of the Democrat candidates for Senate are holding their own right now. And, those are going to be interesting to watch. It's interesting also that the Democrat candidates, some of them in battleground states, are doing better than Joe Biden is. Democrats have pointed this out, saying, you know what? If the Democrat candidates for Senate are doing better than Joe Biden, then the problem is not the Democrat Party and our policies. Our problem is Joe Biden, and they're probably right about that as well. But don't forget that Schumer has a plan, and we need to be aware of it every day. In the meantime, in Mexico, presidential candidate Claudia Sheinbaum has a commanding lead in the poll. and is buoyed by a popular incumbent, Manuel Lopez Obrador. Now, in Mexico, you don't get but one term, and it's 6 years. And Obrador has been grooming Sheinbaum all the way. Sheinbaum's commanding lead in polls ahead of Sunday's election is rooted in her endorsement by Mexico's popular nationalist leader, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who shepherded Sheinbaum's career over the past 2 decades. She has given him years of unflinching loyalty in return. She's the former mayor of Mexico City, known for her reserved and disciplined manner, proclaims at every campaign stop that her administration will be a continuation of López Obrador's. She echoes her mentor's message that the government should keep a tight grip on the energy industry and guide the economy for the benefit of the poor. Former and current Mexican officials and diplomats believe that a Sheinbaum administration would differ in style from López Obrador, but not in substance. There's no daylight between them. Sheinbaum occasionally signals that she'll be independent of her popular mentor. She has a data-driven view of governance, relying on analytics rather than charisma to continue the vision and policies of López Obrador, who operates on gut instinct perhaps more. We share a lot of principles, she said, but it will be Claudia, Sheinbaum told Mexican TV, speaking to herself in the third. It will be Claudia who governs. López Obrador says he's going to retire to the jungles of southern Mexico when his term ends on September 30th. She has been López Obrador's obedient daughter, said Denise Dresser, a political scientist and one of Sheinbaum's critics. She's bilingual, lived in the Bay Area in the 30s, and is comfortable interacting with U.S. officials and investors. According to diplomats and former current Mexican officials, López Obrador does not speak English and has little interest in affairs outside of Mexico. She will also face the threat, and this is probably the most important part, of a powerful organized crime groups that control the flow of U.S.-bound drugs and illegal migration, a top issue for U.S. voters. Criminal gangs are terrorizing towns and villages, the number one concern of Mexican voters. Organized crime has benefited from López Obrador's more lenient hugs, not bullets, law enforcement policies. His critics say the president's administration disagrees, despite statistics to the contrary. Can I just say, on a side note, I just spoke with a friend of mine who's back from Mexico and said that, the rumor, the buzz around Mexico, at least I can't confirm this, but it's what's being heard on the street, and I think that's important, is that Obrador apparently had a meeting with a lot of the cartel folks in secret and said, look, you guys need to, back up a little bit during this election season, and apparently came to some kind of, we hear, I mean, again, it's street talk, some kind of agreement that they would not kill civilians, they would not kill Americans, and that they would operate, but they would operate in a less visible way. So who knows, how much of that is true, but that's certainly the buzz on the street in Mexico, for sure. The whole border situation, of course, is really spilled over to American politics, where it is either the number one or number two issue that American voters care most about. And when you look at the list of things that voters find as important, it's immigration and economy, or sometimes it's economy and immigration, but they're very closely connected, and there's not much difference between which one is more important to the voters. And it's clear that both of those issues work in the favor of Donald Trump and work against Joe Biden. Then you get into things like voter integrity. Well, I don't know. That's a stupid question. Everybody cares about voter integrity, no matter which side you're on. So you get a weird answer there. And then you go way down the list, and then you come to the issue of abortion. And again, I think that's a stupid question, unless you do some follow-up questioning to find out where people stand. What you want to find is everybody says, well, abortion's an important issue. It's not as important as immigration or the economy, but it's an important issue. But listen, if you're pro-life or if you're not pro-life, you care about the issue of abortion. It's one of the most divisive issues in American politics today. And you can both care deeply about the issue. That doesn't mean when you say 47% of people believe that the abortion issue is very important, Well, yes, they do, but that doesn't mean that they believe that with the pro-life people are included in that number as well. So I don't think that number means a hell of a lot. And again, but I think the immigration thing may be the thing that really changes it for a lot of people. A lot of people have looked at what's happening on the border, and they've said, look, you could stop this. Everybody knows that Biden could stop this with a snap of a finger and a couple of phone calls, but he chooses not to do it. And Chuck Schumer has given us the reason why.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are.
11 million people are going to be citizens of the United States if Chuck Schumer has his way. And he just admits it openly. And you hear the applause in the background. Those are other senators. Yeah, that's what we want. We want all these 11 million people to become citizens. We're all for it. I think you and I know that this was always their plan. And you know, I got jumped on when I said this early on. They got a plan here. They're getting as many people into the country, and then they're going to try to find some way to give them a pathway to citizenship because they want to turn them all into voters. And I got lambasted in certain quarters about, I don't know, Wilson, you know, where do you get that stuff, you know? And here it is right here.
For all 11 million or however many undocumented there are.
So now you know the truth. Now you've heard it right out of Chuck Schumer's mouth. And by the way, he said this before. Everybody's making a big deal about this particular statement, but he has said these things before. It shouldn't be a surprise. One of the most underreported stories out there today. It is now 50 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. You knew you should let the team at Restoration Wellness help you achieve your summer goals. Restoration Wellness is a leader in weight loss management in Wilson County, and you know summer is just around the corner. You know, a lot of people will be going to the beach. You want to look good at the beach, right? They got to be put on your swimming suit. You might be around the pool. You want to look good, right? In shorts, everything, of course. Well, call the Restoration Wellness team at this number today, 615-470-8124, or visit them at their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com, to book a consultation today. Now, my friends Carly and Jamie, they're really lovely people, and they're going to take good care of you, just like you're one of the family. They really will. So why don't you be a part of the 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results from the weight loss management program at Restoration Wellness and Med Spa? Weight loss can increase your energy levels, improve your quality of sleep, and enhance your overall health. And these are customized treatments, not a one-size-fits-all approach. They will look at your unique needs, your lifestyle, and your goals. So whether your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness has a solution for you. Learn about the newest technology in weight loss management by going to their website. Here it is. You ready? RestorationWellnessMedSpa.com. That's RestorationWellnessMedSpa.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
The Donald Trump trial to start back tomorrow in the AM. Tourism numbers here in Nashville. Updates in the Israel-Hamas war. An active investigation here in Tennessee. And the Beatles still breaking records. 4 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, I want to hear that story, but it's not surprising. Not surprising. So, 55 minutes now past the hour. I got time to get this little story in. I think this is interesting. You know, when I was a kid growing up, I don't remember this whole outrage about, well, you know, you can't have peanuts in a group setting because some kids have peanut allergies. And boy, I mean, if you got a kid with a peanut allergy, I'm not diminishing the importance of that because, you know, those kids really do have a reaction. I'm not saying it's not real, but I never had that when I was growing up. We never had that,
same.
you know. Yeah, I mean, I never heard of such a thing. Well, now, apparently, here's the reason why. I remember when I was, you know, raising my daughter, and she was just a baby, they said, don't give them any peanuts, you know, because you don't know if they have an allergy or not, and, you know, you need to have her tested before you give them any kind of peanuts. So we didn't give our kid any peanuts. But listen to this story from the Washington Examiner. Giving children peanut products regularly from infancy may significantly reduce the rates of peanut allergies in adolescents, according to a new study from the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. New research from the Learning Early About Peanut Allergy, or LEAP, clinical trials found that regular early peanut consumption from infancy to age 5 reduces the risk of allergy in adolescents by 71%.
Wow.
Compared to early peanut avoidance. Today's findings should reinforce parents and caregivers' confidence that feeding their young children peanut products beginning in infancy, according to established guidelines, can provide lasting protection from peanut allergy. The new finding builds upon the results of the LEAP clinical trials from 2015, in which half of the 640 original participants regularly consumed peanuts from infancy until 5, while the other half avoided peanut products entirely. The 2015 research found the regular consumption reduced the risk of peanut allergy by 81%. So give your baby, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
They'll love you for it anyway. It's delicious.
Well, yeah. I mean, who doesn't love a good PBJ?
Yep.
I had a friend who believed in PBBJ. It was peanut butter, and jelly.
I've heard that.
Wow.
I've heard that.
That sounds absolutely terrible for you, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Oh, you got to try it.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you my favorite. I like peanut butter jelly. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever hear that old thing? We used to do that in high school. It's a cheer. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter.
Not familiar with that one.
You know that?
I love it.
I do that for Grogu because she knows when she has to take her pill every day. I dip my finger into peanut butter, pick up one pill, and shove it down her throat. And so when I start coming toward her, I'm waving the finger going, peanut butter.
Oh, yeah.
And she starts licking her chops. Okay. I love that. So my dog will never have a peanut allergy. I'll promise you that.
That's right.
But I think this is interesting. You know, we avoid it because we were told by our doctors, you don't really want to do that because we don't know what the outcome will be, and we don't want the kid to have a reaction. I said, wait till she gets a little older when she can talk to you, so you at least know that something is wrong before you try any peanut products. But apparently now what they're saying is, give your kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich early, and they will avoid the development of the full-blown allergy later on.
Yeah,
I think it's fascinating. All right, let's take a look at the markets today and see what's going on there. Dow Jones Industrial, and we're in the red big time today. Dow Jones Industrial down 411 points. S&P is down 39, and NASDAQ is down about 99. So are we ready to go to John Max that is standing by to give us more details on what this is all about? John, I think it probably has to do with most everything. It has to do with concern by the markets about interest rates.
Yeah, that's right. Good afternoon, Brian. Yeah, a weak Treasury auction today, too, that caused yields to rise. And also, just to your point, Americans are concerned that the Fed may not pivot to interest rate cuts. We're going to get some great information on Friday. Actually, all 11 sectors of the S&P were down today. And the market really continues to be looking towards what is the Fed going to do? When are they going to decrease interest rates? The market really wants to see that. In fact, I think the Fed wants to do that, but it's going to be inflation driven. We've got the PCE index That's the Fed's favorite inflation gauge. Is coming out on Friday. Initial jobless claims tomorrow are going to help drive that as well. Interestingly enough, consumer confidence was up this month, so a little bit of a mixed message, but it's really all about inflation, what the Fed's going to do with interest rates.
All right, thank you much, John. Find out about all the nice things that they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management, John and the other folks there. If you want to find out how they can help you get ready for retirement, just go to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It's 4 o'clock now on Super Talk.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 78 degrees here in Nashville. A beautiful sunny day. Traffic complete weather forecast 5 minutes away. Some breaking news from Channel 4. Crews are responding to a fire at a salon. It started at another store right over it. This is on Nolensville Pike. The building was smoking, and I will give you more information on that as I hear right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. They have questions. The jury in Donald Trump's New York criminal trial needed a few clarifications this afternoon, just hours after the historic deliberations began. Aaron Katersky has the latest from the courthouse in Lower Manhattan.
The judge said it would take about a half an hour to read back all of the testimony that the jury requested. And then he asked the jury to think about whether they want to hear his instructions again in their entirety. It took about an hour, 15 minutes the first time, or do they just need a certain part? He asked them to think about it, but he's going to dismiss them for the day. So they'll go home and they'll hear the testimony they want to hear first thing tomorrow. And then they'll inform the judge which part or all of the instructions do they want to hear again, and they'll start right back up with that first thing in the morning.
Here in Tennessee, tourism and visitor spending in Nashville breaking records and expected to remain strong. Music City saw a record 16.8 million visitors in 2023. That's a 4% increase over last year's 16.2 million visitors. This is according to new data released by the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation. Forecast shows 17.1 million visitors in 24 and 17.5 the following year, 2025. Future years indicate steady growth to 18.1 million in 2027. That's the new year the new Nissan Stadium is scheduled to open. Israel's operation in Rafah has escalated, especially after the airstrike over the weekend that led to civilian casualties. The Hamas-run health ministry says 50 people died in the strike. Israel says its forces were targeting Hamas leaders and that a fire at a nearby refugee camp led to the civilian deaths. The IDF also said it's investigating the strike and suggested it was ammunition in the area that led to the fire. Britt Clinette has more from Israel.
Residents of Rafah have been reporting that there have been more Israeli airstrikes and that tanks have had mounted raids in central and western areas of Rafah. And the IDF says it has established operational control over the Philadelphia corridor along the Gaza Strip and Egypt, saying it has located 20 tunnels crossing into Egypt.
In some entertainment news, the Beatles didn't need any help breaking an auction record. Jason Nathanson.
It's the most expensive Beatles guitar ever sold at auction. A 12-string acoustic guitar used by John Lennon in the recording of the 1965 Help album, seen in the Help film and used in making other Beatles hits in the 1960s, was sold Wednesday by Julian's Auctions for $2.857 million, $400,000 or so more than the previous best-selling Beatles guitar. The instrument was reportedly found in an attic after being lost for over 50 years. The identity of the buyer was not revealed.
And that's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Eight minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive, to hour number 2. We got 3 more hours to go. We'll be here till 7 o'clock, bringing you all the news and information you need to know. Update on the Trump trial, where the attorneys and Trump's been in the courtroom ever since they dismissed the jury for the day to work through some issues. The jury's had questions, and they're trying to figure out exactly how they should answer those questions. They said we need to see the testimony of Cohen and Pecker, and so they're figuring that one out. And then apparently a real surprise move. The jury said, we want the judge to reread their instructions. There's 56 pages of instructions, and it takes about an hour and change to read through all of it. And so I think they're trying to figure out, well, what part of the instruction, you want us to read the whole thing? Because I'm sure the judge doesn't really want to do that. So they're trying to figure that out. Now, we have heard that Trump may stop by the camera outside in that echoey hallway to have some things to say as they leave for the day. And you know, we've gotten pretty smart about how this stuff starts to happen. You watch that scene, the camera outside the courtroom, and you start to see the flashes go off. And that means that somebody's coming out of the courtroom and the flashes have been going off left and right. And so we expect that Donald Trump will be coming out soon. And the question is, will he stop? And so we're we're going to watch that. Chris, you got that up on your monitor?
Yep.
Okay, so if the moment that he starts to speak, we'll just give me the heads up and we'll go straight into it so we can hear what the president has to say about the events of the day. Earlier today, he said that he thinks that the instructions to the jury made it very difficult to get a good outcome here. He said Mother Teresa couldn't win in this environment. So there you go. And again, more flashes going off in that echoey hallway. I think we may be close. In the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in the 2024 campaign situation with an update, campaign election update. There's our official music for that. It's not official until you hear the music. I've got a couple of things here. A full-blown freakout. We told you about this yesterday. Politico sent 5 reporters out to do a story and talk to different Democrat thought leaders about, where are you with regard to Joe Biden as the nominee? And their headline said, full-blown freakout. Democrats are having a panic attack over Joe Biden's electoral prospects, and people have been sort of commenting on that particular story, which really was a big story yesterday. And so really interesting. We hear from the president. I mean, he has said himself that you should, look at the polls. Just read the polls, Jack.
Read the polls, Jack.
And you'll see everything you need to know. Okay, Mr. President, I'm going to read the polls here.
Read the polls, Jack.
Okay, you bet. I'm not Jack, I'm Brian, but I'll still read the polls. A quick check of the polling averages show that Biden has only led in one of the last 8 polls, with the president posting just a single-point advantage, according to Quinnipiac. Given the dynamics of the Electoral College, which suppose a 3 to 4 point lead would be necessary for Biden to prevail, that's probably not going to cut it, and no Democrat wants to be the one to admit publicly what they all know. It's like the elephant in the room, except maybe we'd say it's a big donkey in the room. You don't want to be that guy who's on record saying we're doomed or the campaign's bad or Biden's making mistakes. Nobody wants to be that guy, said a Democratic operative in close touch with the White House, granted anonymity to speak freely. But Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of the election are creating the freakout. And then the reporter goes on in this analysis, goes on to say, let's be honest about what's really got Democrats losing their minds at the moment. This is true. This is really true. It's not just that Biden is lagging in the polls due to his terrible tenure as president. It's that their lawfare gambit appears to be failing. It's not just the possibility of conviction backfiring that has them needing smelling salts, though. Democrats are facing another outcome that could prove catastrophic. Several months before this writing, this author, who writes for RedState.com, made the case that no one seemed to be considering what would happen if Trump avoided a conviction in his New York criminal trial. Given the absurdity and weakness of DA Alvin Bragg's case, that is now a distinct possibility, despite the far-left judge's best efforts. When the star witness against the defendants admits to grand larceny on the stand, things aren't exactly going well. Well, the Democrats are freaking out, and let's look at some more polls.
Read the polls, Jack.
Okay, how about Virginia? This just out. Roanoke College has a poll that says that if the election were held today in Virginia, which is technically right now on most people's assessment a blue state, it would be in a two-way race, it would be a tie. A tie in Virginia. I mean, Trump has said, I can compete in Virginia. If it were a 5-way race, which is, I think, more likely, Biden would be up by 2, but that's within the margin of error. Trump is in the hunt in Virginia, and I think that there's some momentum there. I think there are unseen and unexplored currents going through the electorate right now, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Trump picked up Virginia. If he picks up Virginia, which I think the Biden people think is in their back pocket, I mean, if Biden has to protect Virginia, that means he's not going to be able to protect some other places. And that's very interesting. Michigan, of course, it's a battleground state. Mitchell Research has Trump up by 2 in Michigan in the 2-way race. And the 5-way race, when you take all 5 of the potential candidates who might be on the ballot there, he's still up by 1. So Michigan, again, looking pretty good for this president. More on that. New data from Ad Impact shows that 71.3 million has been spent on campaign ads for the 2024 election so far. And Democrats are far outspending Republicans. More interesting still is that 30% of the spending is targeted voters in Pennsylvania. While the Keystone State remains very much in the toss-up column, they write in the Washington Examiner, it is slowly trending toward former President Donald Trump, who leads President Joe Biden by 2 points in the Real Clear average of polls in that state. Trump's lead was bolstered last week by a poll from Cook Political Report, which showed him up by 3 points. Except for a few brief periods during a one-day spike in February, Trump has held on to the modest lead in Pennsylvania since Real Clear Politics began tracking the results in that state. And if we stripped out the results from the left-leaning pollster's Susquehanna, even those short-lived upticks would be erased.
Read the polls, Jack.
Yeah, read the polls, Mr. President. I mean, the polls not looking so good for you there. The Biden campaign is in panic over the results in Pennsylvania, and with good reason. That state could decide the presidential race if Trump holds all the states he won in 2020, wins the swing states that he's now decisively ahead in, Arizona up by 4.1, Georgia up by 4, and Nevada up by 5.3 in averages. Some polls show him doing better than that. He will return to the White House. And now we got Virginia in play. He says he can compete in New Jersey. He says he can compete in Minnesota. He says he can compete, Trump does, in the state of Virginia. All of these things, if true, and if he picks up one of those, then, he doesn't need the battleground states of Michigan, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. Just saying. So, I mean, again, I'm looking at some pretty deep, numbers here. But what I draw from the numbers is the trend. Where's the trend? And everywhere you look, there seems to be a slow and gradual movement toward Trump and away from Biden. And I can't find anything that looks terrible for the president, but the trend is going in the right direction. I can't find anything that looks terrible for the former president. Everything seems to be coming his way. The current president away from him. I mean, I can understand why Democrats are freaking out. In North Carolina, according to the Cook Political Report, they have shifted the North Carolina governor's race to a toss-up. That's pretty amazing. They haven't elected many Republican governors in the state of North Carolina. And they're looking at Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson against Democratic Attorney General Josh Stein as they vie to succeed the Democrat term-limited Roy Cooper. And see, what I'm seeing here is, okay, the Republican is doing pretty good there, and I think it has to do with these other stories that show that Trump is doing very well there. I think there is a shift underway in North Carolina, and I think the issue I really do believe that the economy and the issue of immigration are starting to cause certain currents in some of these, borderline blue states. So they're now saying CPR's, that's the Cook Political Report's, initial rating of the race was lean Democrat, given the party's recent track record of winning, even as former President Donald Trump carried the state. But Robinson's strong fundraising skills have tipped the balance back toward the middle. So we may have an interesting outcome there in the gubernatorial race, but I think it speaks of the currents in that particular state. We've told you that that Biden has a problem with his nomination coming too late to qualify him for the Ohio ballot. And now the Democrat National Committee has announced that it will nominate incumbent President Joe Biden over a virtual call in order to get him on the ballot in Ohio. The move comes after Biden was facing the possibility of not being in the ballot in the Rust Belt state in the 2024 election. Ohio's deadline to be on the ballot is August 7th, which is a few weeks before the Democrat convention being held in Chicago. As a result, Biden was facing the prospect of not being in the ballot in the state, so they will hold a virtual nomination, and they will then go ahead and nominate him, and then they'll hold their convention. Bass backwards. Probably one of the most underreported stories that I've seen today is this story from the Washington Examiner. One of former President Donald Trump's vice presidential candidates is reportedly willing to go to considerable lengths to be selected. Senator Marco Rubio has said that he will change his Florida residency in order to be Trump's vice president, according to the New York Times. I would assume he would just change his residency to whatever house he has or whatever abode he has in Washington, D.C., I guess. The decision would be in response to a constitutional conflict in which the president and vice president on the same ticket cannot share the same state of residency, or they may lose that state's electoral votes. In Florida, that would be 30 votes, electoral college votes. You don't want to lose that. Trump, who is a resident of Florida, reportedly said he would not change his residency because Floridians would not want him to leave. Earlier this month, Rubio's office had said the senator had not spoken about the topic with anyone from Trump's campaign. While Rubio could be the former president's choice, others, such as Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, Ben Carson, and Representative Elise Stefanik, have been floated as well. But here's Rubio now saying, hey, former President Trump, if you want me to be your running mate, don't worry. I'll be glad to change my residency out of the state of Florida. I think that would be very interesting. I think he might be one of the leading candidates, for sure. Very quickly, ex-Trump spokeswoman Katrina Pearson. Remember her? She used to be, she's really quite something. Very impressive. There was a time when I was in between jobs where I did a little media training, and I trained people how to appear on camera and do that kind of stuff. It was fun. I really enjoyed doing that. And I trained Katrina Pearson, or I should say I tried to. She didn't need any training. She's the one person who sat in front of the camera, and we did the little run-throughs, and I looked at her and I said, wow. I can't teach you anything. You've got this. Well, she apparently is back in the political spotlight. She unseated State Representative Justin Holland in Texas, and he was one of the many incumbents that were targeted by Governor Greg Abbott because he had voted against key state GOP policies like the school choice thing that Abbott was trying to push. Interestingly enough, in Tennessee, our current governor is also looking very closely at potential candidates and their position on school choice in this upcoming election, and will not endorse those that have said that they are not for school choice, trying to have the same outcome. Apparently now in Texas, they say they have a good chance of getting school choice patched based on the way these primaries went. 22 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Deliberation in the Donald Trump hush money trial to continue tomorrow morning. Plus our Money News Report taking a trip to Wall Street, all at 4:30 right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 26 minutes now past the hour. Still watching that echoey hallway in New York, where we expect the former president will have some things to say after the first day of jury deliberations. They did about 4 hours and change. Then they sent out a couple of questions, and the questions were confounding. One was, we want to see all the testimony from Pecker and Cohen. And so there's some question about, well, do you want all of it, or are there some parts that you're really interested in? So apparently they're having some discussions about how they answer that. And then they sent out another question saying that they wanted the judge, a note from the jury saying they wanted the judge to reread his jury instructions. Well, that's 56 pages, and it took more than an hour to read it the first time. So I think what they're trying to find out, and what they'll probably try to explore with the jury tomorrow is, well, is there some part of it you want us to read, or do you really need to hear the entire thing? We are seeing movement now in the courtroom, outside the courtroom, Chris, is that right?
Well, I thought so. Maybe. But nothing yet. I don't see him. I thought I saw his hair come out, but maybe not. There is movement, though.
You see the hair before you see anything else with that guy. Okay, well, just go to it if he comes to the microphones. He usually stops there in the doorway and has a little conversation with his attorney.
Oh, that's what he's doing. I do see his profile now. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is standing outside the doorway
to make sure that there are things he shouldn't say.
Yeah,
and so usually you give him just about half a beat, couple of seconds, and he starts making his way to the microphones. So we're watching. I can't see him right now, so you've got the only picture of him that I know. Is it still?
Well, there's a bunch of boxes of documents being brought out. Yeah, he's still standing there conferring with his attorney.
His attorney. I love the way his attorney walks up and stands beside him and glares.
Yeah, just stares straight ahead right at the camera.
Just stares straight ahead. He looks almost like he's a prisoner of war. I'm starting to see if he's blinking in Morse code. I don't know what's going on there, but he just stares at the camera and never says anything. I don't know. I guess he's there in a case of an emergency when Trump starts going to places he shouldn't go.
Here he comes, walking.
Okay, here he comes. Let's listen to the former president.
Very good, thank you.
Do you have a fair jury?
What is very unfair is that I'm not campaigning in this room all day long, from morning to night, in the Biden witch hunt. Take a look at where the people come from. It's a Biden witch hunt. It's weaponization. So it seems that there are a lot of witnesses, a lot of people that they could have called that they didn't call. Now, they didn't call them, obviously, because they would have been very bad witnesses for them. But take a look at the list. Because of the gag order, I won't go down into individual names. But you have a lot of big players, very big players, that would have solved their problem, or actually would have given us the win. We already have the win. If we had a fair judge, this case would have been over a long time ago. But a lot of key witnesses were not called. Look at your list. Look at the players. And you know who I'm talking about. You can take 5 or 6 of them. Why didn't they call those witnesses? They didn't call them because they would have been on our side. And it's a shame. And in particular, one witness who's now suffering gravely because of what's happened, because of the viciousness of these thugs, the vicious people, what they've done to that person. And you know who I'm talking about. And they didn't call him as a witness. They didn't call anybody as a witness. And all these people they could have called and solved the problem. The other thing, the confusion is, nobody knows what the crime is, because there's no crime. Nobody knows what the crime is. The DA didn't name the crime. They don't know what the crime is. That's what the problem is. It's a disgrace. This thing ought to be ended immediately. The judge ought to end it and save his reputation. Thank you very much.
Are you happy for lawyers?
And with that, the former president, he turns and walks away. So that's it. He's unhappy with the thing, wants to know why certain witnesses weren't called by the prosecution. And I think he's talking about a guy named Weisberg, and who was not called. So that's exactly what he's saying, is that, if they had called him, we would have won the case. And they didn't call these people, and that's very much on his mind right now. So So the jury did about 4 hours and 35 minutes of deliberation, and then they went home for the day. Some continuing discussions in the courtroom about how to answer the notes. We pick this thing up tomorrow at about 8:30 Middle Tennessee time. We're a little bit over, but let's get to the news now at 31 minutes past the hour.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 79 degrees, a sunny day here on Music Row. Forecast, a traffic report just ahead. You just heard former President Donald Trump talking to the press. Well, that comes after just a few hours into the historic deliberation. The judge excused them for the day. We will have more going on tomorrow.
The lawyers were still deciding how to respond to the first note from the jury, asking for readbacks of different pieces of testimony from National Enquirer publisher David Pecker and Trump's former fixer Michael Cohen, when the bell rang again in court, signaling another note from the jury. And this time, the judge said as he read it, the jury wanted to hear his instructions on the law again.
And that was Aaron Katursky reporting. Now over to the money news. Daria Albinger filling us in on Wall Street today.
Stocks plunged under the weight of higher yields in the bond market. The Dow fell 411 points, the S&P closed down 39, and the Nasdaq gave up 99. Higher Treasury yields hurt prices for all kinds of investments, but they can pack a particularly hard punch for stocks. American Airlines Group led a slump for airline stocks after it cut its forecast for profit and other financial targets for the spring. 3 black men are suing American, claiming they were discriminated against when they were ordered to leave a plane that was about to take off from Phoenix back in January. ConocoPhillips is buying Marathon Oil in an all-stock deal worth over just $17 billion. Nissan is warning the owners of about 84,000 older vehicles to stop driving them because their Takata airbag inflators are at high risk of exploding during a crash. A number of models from a number of model years are affected. You can see which ones are included on the company's website.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
All right, a question from my friends at Beacon. Are your retirement assets structured to minimize taxes? A very important question. Many hardworking Americans, just like you, could be overpaying on taxes in retirement. You can be taxed on your IRA, your 401k, any other tax-deferred retirement accounts. Beacon Capital Management is here to give you peace of mind. With the threat of massive tax increases just around the corner, your nest egg could be in trouble unless you take advantage of defensive tax-saving strategies now. Defend your hard-earned retirement savings by scheduling a free retirement tax reduction analysis today. No cost, no pressure, no obligation. If you've saved more than $250,000 for retirement, don't wait any longer. Schedule your free retirement tax reduction analysis from Beacon. Just call 615-488-9303 or visit askbeaconnow.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It is 38 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive for this Wednesday, May 29th. So we've got a lot of Tennessee news that I want to get through. I want to make sure that I get an opportunity to talk about this story because I think it's interesting. From the Tennessee Star, Governor Bill Lee confirms that he's engaged with Republican candidates to determine school choice stance ahead of primary elections. You see, we're going to have primary elections before long, and the governor is trying to figure out who he can trust in the state legislature to get a couple of his things across the goal line. I mean, he's had real trouble, let's be honest with it. He came up with a red flag law that he doesn't call it a red flag law, but that's what it was. And it did not get through the state legislature. Then this last session, his big thing was, well, we're going to do something about, school choice, and we're going to have, this fund that will following the child, and ultimately every school student in the state of Tennessee, if the governor had his vision come through, would have the opportunity to go to public school or a private school with having some money that would follow them and help them get into private schools if that's what the parents wanted to do. Didn't go well. So he needs some help in the state legislature. Now he's taking the time to go through all that stuff and make sure that he's getting candidates that will support him. Now, what's interesting about this is Texas just held their primaries, just got finished with them, and Governor Abbott is saying the way he also vetted people, and the way that the primaries worked, he now believes that the state legislature will be opening more open to his school choice proposals, and he's very excited about that. So I think it's interesting to watch what the governor is doing here. And I listen. I wasn't with him on red flag law. I was very much with the governor on his school choice proposal. I believe that was the way to go. His education savings account, that would have been, I think, a good thing for the state. And he just couldn't get it across the goal line because he didn't have the support he needed in the state legislature. Now he is actively engaged in talking with primary opponents of those people who stood against him. Lee said he met with several candidates, some who are in open seats and some who are incumbents, with the governor specifically asking the candidates for their stances on his education, freedom, and choice for parents. I want to know where new candidates stand on the issue because it's so important to me. You'll see me talking to those candidates. He needs to find out everything that all the candidates in a particular district, including their stance on school choice, to help him understand who I can be most supportive and helpful to ahead of the primary elections on August 1st. So acknowledging the defeat of his proposal, Lee previously stated, we made tremendous progress, but unfortunately it's become clear there's not a pathway for the bill during this legislative session. It'll be interesting to see how that all happens and what happens with that in the next few days. We'll look at it and we'll keep following up on that. I hope he gets some people in the state legislature who will support him. I think these are valuable ideas. At least the school choice thing was, for sure. There's, let's see, what else have I got here? Nashville tourists spent about $29 million a day last year, according to a report. A record $10.56 billion reportedly spent by tourists and visitors in 2023, according to WSMV and others. Nashville tourists and visitors spent a whopping $29 million a day throughout the Music City last year, which led to a record $10.56 billion in visitor spending. Nashville Convention and Visitors Corp say those tourism dollars came from about 16.8 million visitors to the city last year, representing a 4% increase from 2022. Tourism experts believe the number is going to continue to rise, despite other factors like inflation affecting tourist wallets. Nashville tends to have a very robust tourism industry, regardless of how the economy is doing, said Adam Sachs, an expert in tourism economics. Nashville is also among the most popular spots for business meetings and networking among professionals. Of the visitors coming here, experts estimate that about 64% are leisure travelers, and 36% of those who come for conventions and business, including business meetings, reunions, student groups, and other groups or meetings. It's been named a top global destination by major travel outlets for a remarkable 13 years in a row, and our industry is proud to contribute to our city's success by creating jobs. I think that's true. And look, Lower Broad, as much as we sometimes roll our eyes and say, oh, it's just chaos down there, a lot of the locals don't like to go down there all that much because it's just chaotic. But those few blocks in downtown Nashville are an economic engine for this city. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect tourists and to make sure that everything is safe down there, because if the word gets out that things are not that, and there have been some incidents, of late, people throwing chairs off of roofs of buildings and people drowning in the river after getting served or apparently overserved. So there are some questions, but I hope that they continue to work on making sure that downtown Nashville is a safe place. Finally, in Nashville news, I want to spend some time talking about this story. It's rather complex. I'll see if I can help you understand it. We did a story a while back about a police officer who had been decommissioned at the Nashville Police Department because he apparently wore his Nashville police uniform, was seen in a video that was basically a porn video. And he did a fake stop, was part of this porn narrative. I understand that they have a loose storyline. I mean, I don't know. I've just heard this, that there's a loose storyline that surrounds a lot of pornographic activity. And part of the storyline was he stopped a woman who then exposed her breasts to him. That's part of the story. And so he was decommissioned because it was determined that he was the one who was wearing the uniform. It was clearly visible in the porn video. It was Nashville Police Department. We heard from a guy by the name of Garrett Davidson, a former lieutenant with the Office of Professional Accountability there at the Nashville Police Department. And he gave us a lot of background on this particular individual, this officer, that showed that this was not perhaps the first time this particular officer had been noted for doing things that were eyebrow-raising, to say the least, and that he had been given a last chance warning by the police department. The guy's name was Garrett Davidson. We have since found out that he does a podcast. He's an author, has written some books, and now comes this. The Metro Community Review Board called a special meeting Tuesday to discuss bombshell accusations made by former Nashville Police Lieutenant Garrett Davidson. This from Fox 17. The some 60-page document was sent to both Metro's Police Internal Affairs Unit, the Office of Professional Accountability, and the Community Review Board. The whistleblower, a now retired lieutenant who had worked at the OPA, alleges what the Community Review Board describes as serious allegations of misconduct within the OPA and by high-ranking Metro Nashville Police Department personnel. Metro Nashville PD is now investigating the complaint. However, CRB members noted the complaint named staffers within the OPA itself and alleges OPA's conduct and that some of Metro Nashville Police Department leadership is part of the problem. CRB Executive Director Jill Fitchard declined Metro Legal Department Attorney Nikki Ike's warning to not discuss the matter at all publicly. Ike said the public discussion would violate parts of a new state law that weaken police oversight boards across the state. But they said, no, we're not going. I will not sit in this meeting and pretend that we don't have a 61-page document that has some very serious and critical issues and not say one word about it. I refuse to do that. I think this community deserves to understand the complexity of the complaint. They need to understand some of the allegations. Now, CRB members were careful not to go in specifics about the claim. However, Fox 17 has obtained portions of the complaint. One of the allegations is that high-level MNPD officials work behind closed doors to lobby state officials and stakeholders to pass the law aimed at reducing the ability of police oversight boards in Tennessee. It is now more difficult for these watchdog boards to independently investigate citizen complaints of officer misconduct. That bill passed and went into effect last summer, and the CRB has been hamstrung since, not receiving nearly what it used to in investigative-related documents from the Metro Nashville Police Department. CRB members said it made it difficult to meaningfully review a case. Now, I'm not a big fan of the CRB, but it's interesting that this, of course, you can understand why they're upset, because it looks like, if this is true, that the Metro Nashville Police Department was working behind the closed doors to lobby against the CRB and its power to get involved in investigations. Now, I actually agree with that policy, but I understand that this would be why they are very irritated. But what is said here is very interesting. Inside the complaint are allegations of MNPD and high-ranking officials having a hand in the law. And then there are other things that suggest that the Metro Nashville Police Department's higher-ups may not have taken some allegations very seriously. Well, we have been in touch with this ex-lieutenant, and we are in conversations with him to get more on this. And I think it's very interesting to look at this particular case. Now, look, when we talked about this police officer who was, decommissioned because of his active ability, his active operation, and in this porn video, he came on our air and talked about it a little bit, and there were some of these things.
Well, unfortunately, social media cases like this with officers have been on the rise, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, OnlyFans. Maybe it's a generational thing. But undoubtedly, when this information came to light, investigators were working around the clock, probably pretty nonstop, in order to gather as much information as possible. The command staff wouldn't like it, but there are policies and procedures for conducting these investigations and running through.
Generally, how do you find out about these kind of things?
Well, a variety of sources. The Metro Nashville Police Department will take anonymous complaints. So any citizen who has a concern and some information can send that in. You, of course, have fellow officers who can overhear things or discover things themselves, as they search the internet, and then they report it to their chain of command or to OPA. There's any number of sources.
Now, this particular police officer who's been decommissioned, we heard, he told us earlier in the interview that there had been several allegations about the guy in the past. Eyebrow-raising allegations, I should say, if I could speak correctly. And so the question is, did they take it seriously? Seriously, it sounds to me like they didn't take it very seriously. and we're willing to, bend over backwards to not make this a thing. But it has become a thing, and apparently there are other things that Garrett Davidson wants to talk about. As I mentioned, we've been in contact with him today, and we are going to have a conversation with him, I think, going forward, and we'll see if he wants to come on and talk more about the things that are in this 60-page document that apparently is raising a lot of concern on the Community Reserve Board, Review Board, and also makes some pretty serious allegations about Metro Nashville Police Department's leadership. We want to know more about that, and we'll be following up on that in the days ahead. 51 minutes now past the hour.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
The jury in the Donald Trump New York criminal trial needing a few clarifications. Jury deliberations to begin again tomorrow morning, or continue tomorrow morning, rather. We've got some crime in Tennessee. A toddler hit by a drunk driver. European nations looking to take action in response to Iran's nuclear program. And we've got some news on the Border Patrol down in Tucson, Arizona, all right here, 5 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you, Mac Maury. It is 57 minutes now past the hour. Got a moment here before we hit to the top of the hour of news. I want to tell you a little bit about what's Stellantis. Stellantis, you know, is a lot of people say, well, you got GM, you got Ford. It used to be Chrysler. Well, now it's Stellantis. And so those are the big three automakers. A lot of brands are walking away from the idea of EVs, saying we're going to do hybrids. We're not going to do as many EVs. But now, Jeep, there's going to be a $25,000 electric Jeep coming to the U.S. very soon. That according to the CEO, Carlos Tavares, who said that we already sell them elsewhere in the world and we're making money on them. We're going to sell them in America, too. Are you ready for your all-electric Jeep?
Spoiler alert, it's probably a Fiat in disguise.
It probably is.
Yeah.
It's 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 77 degrees in Nashville. Traffic and a complete weather forecast 5 minutes away. They have questions. The jury in Donald Trump's New York criminal trial needed a few clarifications this afternoon, just hours after the historic deliberations began. Aaron Katersky has the latest from the courthouse in Lower Manhattan.
The judge said it would take about a half an hour to read back all of the testimony that the jury requested. And then he asked the jury to think about whether they want to hear his instructions again in their entirety. It took about an hour, 15 minutes the first time, or do they just need a certain part? He asked them to think about it, but he's going to dismiss them for the day. So they'll go home and they'll hear the testimony they want to hear first thing tomorrow. And then they'll inform the judge which part or all of the instructions do they want to hear again, and they'll start right back up with that first thing in the morning.
The jury sent 2 notes this afternoon. They wanted to hear testimony and instructions. Now back here in Tennessee right now, a 2-year-old boy was seriously hurt after being hit by a car near the Highland Apartments in South Nashville. A 23-year-old woman was pushing her son in a stroller. They were struck by a Chrysler. That toddler was knocked unconscious, the mother with minor injuries. The driver, identified as 27-year-old Mario Alonzo, smelled of alcohol, watery eyes, slurred speech. Officials said Alonzo was, quote, clearly impaired. He began to sob and be combative when they removed him from the vehicle. Alonzo remains jailed on an over $77,000 bond. European nations looking to take action in response to Iran's growing nuclear program. Anastasia Katera.
Britain, France, and Germany drafting a resolution against Iran ahead of the UN Nuclear Watchdog's board meeting next week. Amid reports Iran has continued its uranium enrichment program in its bid to acquire nuclear weapons. According to Reuters, the U.S. is worried such a resolution could risk further escalation in the region. It has been 18 months since the International Atomic Energy Agency's board last passed a resolution against Iran.
And in Arizona, Tucson area Border Patrol agents have made a discovery which could have been deadly for over a dozen migrants trying to enter the U.S. illegally. Alex Stone brings us details.
Border Patrol agents in the Tucson area took a closer look last week at a big rig going through an immigration checkpoint on Interstate 19. According to a post from the chief of the Border Patrol in the area, 16 migrants were found hiding in the back of the refrigerated truck with the cooler set to 50 degrees. The trailer of the truck was locked with no way to escape. The driver is a U.S. citizen and was arrested on criminal charges.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Six minutes after the hour, 5 o'clock. We're halfway through the drive for today. Hope you're getting home safely. Let's be careful out there on this Wednesday. Feels like a Tuesday, but it's Wednesday, May 29th. Glad that you're with us. Got a lot of stuff going on here. We'll try to get right into it. I think a lot of attention is being paid, to what's happening in the courtroom down I keep saying down. I guess we'd say over in New York City. It's over. It's not down. It's not up. It's over.
I'd say up.
You'd say up?
That's north of here. That's up to me.
Yeah, it is. It's north and east.
Yeah.
Over.
All right, fine.
All right, so it's over there. And so let me see if I can bring you up to speed. If you're just getting into the car and you don't know anything about what has happened today, the jury heard instructions from the judge. His instructions are 56 pages long, and they're convoluted. And he sent them off with that, and they deliberated for about 4 hours and change. And then they sent out a bunch of questions. They want to see testimony, written testimony, transcripts of the things that Pecker and Cohen testified to. Well, that's a lot of stuff because there were days on the stand. And so they're trying to figure out, is there some part of it you want us to focus on, or do you just want us to bring you in, reams and reams and reams of testimony? And I think they're trying to figure out how to get that information from the jury. And then they also sent out a question saying, can you read your instructions to us again? Well, that took an hour. And so I think they're trying to figure out how to respond to that request. The attorney stayed in the courtroom afterwards to try to work through some of that stuff with the judge. But the judge, his instructions to the jury, I can understand why the jury has all kinds of problems with it. Because basically, they're the most bizarre instructions I've ever heard in a trial. Trump, this morning, as he was going into the courtroom, had been apprised of these instructions and what they meant, and was not at all happy.
Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job. And it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace. And I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. It's a very disgraceful situation. Every single legal scholar and expert said this is no case. It shouldn't be brought. And it certainly could have been brought 7 years ago, not in the middle of a presidential election. It was all done by Joe Biden. This judge contributed to Joe Biden, and far worse than that, but I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. Far worse than that, by 1,000 times worse than that. The worst I've ever heard, but I can't talk about it. It'll be talked about, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But it'll be talked about in the history books. What's happening here is weaponization at a level that nobody's seen before, ever. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I'll stay around here. This is 5 weeks. And 5 weeks of really essentially not campaigning, although I took a big lead in the polls over the last few weeks. Something's going on. Because I think the people of this country see that this is a rigged deal. It's a weaponized deal for the Democrats to hit their political opponent. For Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States. He's destroying our country. He's letting millions of people from jails, from prisons, from insane asylums, from mental institutions, drug dealers pour in.
Well, so you can tell he's upset, and it turns into kind of a campaign speech after that. But what is it that bothers him about this? Well, apparently, in these instructions, and remember, 56 pages of instructions, which the jury was not allowed to take back with them. The instructions were written out, but they didn't get a copy. And they have questions, and that's why they're asking the judge to explain it to them again. And there's a part of it that's really strange, that apparently the jury does not have to have a unanimous decision on these cases for there to be a conviction. How does that work? I've never heard of such a thing. And the legal analysts are scratching their heads as well. Here's Jonathan Turley.
There's this other crime out there, and the prosecutors have suggested 3 different crimes. And he told the jury, you don't have to agree on what actually occurred. So you could have a jury that split 4, 4, and 4 on what actually occurred, what that other crime was, and the judge will treat it like a unanimous verdict.
I've never heard of such a thing. Andrew McCarthy.
What's supposed to happen in a criminal trial is a prosecutor has to prove every element of an offense beyond a reasonable doubt. So every crime, which is a creature of some statute, has different elements. One is a mental element, and then there are the things that you have to do to commit the crime. So like with bank robbery, you have to, take money by force from a financial institution and do it intentionally. And those are the things the prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. What this judge is telling this jury in this kind of make it up as you go along New York State prosecution of federal law is that when they get to the end of the rainbow and we get to the elements of the offense, the jury doesn't have to be in agreement on what it is exactly that Trump did or what he was trying to commit or conceal when he allegedly falsified his business records. So they're going to give the jury a menu of choices and tell the jury that some of them may believe that this was the criminal objective. Some of them may believe something else was, but that they don't have to be unanimous on that. I actually think that's pretty outrageous, but in this case, I'm not sure it makes the top 10 of outrageous.
Well, there's some truth in that for sure. But, what's interesting about this is that apparently all of this stuff that's going on in New York is not moving the needle at all toward Biden and away from Trump. In fact, Trump's support has remained steady throughout it all. Here's Harry Enton saying that, basically Americans are not paying much attention.
All right, let's take a look here. Think Trump did something illegal in the New York hush money case. I've been interested in whether or not these numbers would change at all during the course of this trial. Simply put, John, they have not. Pre-opening statements think Trump did something illegal, 46%. After the direct examination of Michael Cohen by the prosecution, look at where we are now, 46%. The percentage of Americans who think that the charges are very serious, in fact, dropped from 40% to a little bit more than 35% during the course of this trial. So, yes, perhaps things might have changed with those 12 jurors, but when it comes to the larger American public, there has been no change. I think the question is, what's exactly cooking here? Why hasn't there been much of a change? Well, folks like you and me, real news junkies, might be paying really close attention to what's going on. The fact is, most Americans don't really care that much. So closely following news about economy, inflation, that's number one at 65%. Look at immigration, 52%. Election legitimacy, 49%. Abortion, 47%. All the way down on this list of issues tested by the Ipsos Knowledge Panel is Trump's court cases at 42%, significantly less than economy and inflation. The fact is, John, when we're looking at these numbers, what we see is Americans' minds aren't changing, and a big reason why Americans' minds aren't changing is at this particular point, John, they are tuned out.
I think because of fatigue. I think there is a Trump trial fatigue. And day in, day out, they just lose interest, and they can't follow the complexities of this thing unless they are, raptly paying attention, and most people are not. I think that's probably true. In fact, you could make the argument that while Trump has been tied up in that courtroom, it has helped him. His numbers have gone up, especially these battleground polls are pretty impressive. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, now, every day, somebody said, well, this is a political witch hunt. This is not a trial. This is not a prosecution. It's a political persecution. And I think there's some validity to that position. But, the Trump people have said this, and the Biden people have said, oh, no, this is just justice working its way. This is not political at all. Well, if it's not political, then tell me, why is the current president of the United States poised to jump on the air and do a victory lap if indeed there is a conviction? This was talked about today while the president was flying on Air Force One to an event. Karine Jean-Pierre was asked questions by the press corps in the back of the plane.
How much attention is the president paying to the Trump trial as they begin deliberations?
I have to be pretty honest with you. I've not talked to the president about that. This is going to be an important day. Obviously, the campaign is going to have more to share. The president, and I said this yesterday a couple times when I was asked this question in various ways, that the president's focused on the American people, delivering for the American people. You'll hear him talk about some of that today. Again, the campaign, we'll speak to that since the campaign event. That's his focus. I just have not. I'm not focused. I'm not questioning.
Thank you. Do you think he'll make reference to it in his remarks today?
I think the president's going to be focused on the American people today.
Well, a handful of them at least. The event that he went to turned out to be dozens of people. I mean, Trump can put, tens of thousands of people in Brooklyn at a campaign rally. And the president of the United States flies into these events, and they're carefully choreographed, and they're shot in a way that it looks like there's a big crowd. But I mean, literally, somebody took a picture. It's in a gymnasium. And I don't know. It seemed as if maybe a quarter of the gymnasium had people in it. These events are not very big, not very large. All right. So there's that. There's this story that I think is interesting. Representative Elise Stefanik, Republican of New York, thought of as a potential running mate for Donald Trump, has filed a complaint against Judge Merchan. He's the guy, of course, overseeing this trial for Donald Trump, alleging that his selection in the former president's case was not random. The potential misconduct pertains to the repeated assignment of acting Justice Juan Merchan, a Democrat Party donor, to criminal cases related to President Donald J. Trump and his allies. Ms. Stefanik, who has been reportedly aiming to be the former vice president's pick, wrote in former president's vice presidential pick, wrote in a letter on Tuesday. She added that Judge Merchan also presided over the criminal trial against the Trump Organization and will be presiding over the criminal trial of Steve Bannon, who was a senior advisor to the former president while he was in the White House. Ms. Stefanik noted in her letter that there are about 36 judges eligible to oversee the Trump-related cases, but Judge Merchan, who is an acting justice, was selected for 3 of the cases related to the former president and presumptive Republican nominee for the White House in 2024. If justices were indeed being randomly assigned in the criminal term, the probability of 2 specific criminal cases being assigned to the same justice is quite low, and the probability of 3 specific criminal cases being assigned to the same justice is infinitesimally small. And yet we see acting Justice Merchan on all 3 of these cases. Her letter made reference to Judge Merchan's donations to the Democratic Party and President Joe Biden, while adding that his daughter is in charge of a consulting company that works with Democrat officials. One cannot help but suspect that the random selection at work in the assignment of acting Justice Merchan, a Democrat Party donor to these cases involving prominent Republicans, is not, in fact, random at all. I think she's probably right about that. And then there's this, it's sort of sad. I hate to bring it up, but I think you have to understand that they are looking, the folks at the Secret Service, they have to make sure that all contingencies are covered. So the Secret Service has reportedly met with jail officials in New York in the possibility to look at the possibility of what they would do if there is a conviction and Donald Trump is jailed. A source told CBS News that the preparations were underway as the Manhattan trial reached closing arguments and jury deliberations this week. The report said correction officers would be responsible for protecting any Secret Service agent's tasked with safeguarding Trump if he spends any time behind bars. Although the location of where Trump might spend jail time remains unclear, CBS noted shorter sentences can be served at the Rikers Island complex, which has 2 wings typically used for high-profile inmates. Trump's allies expressed outrage in response to the report, criticizing the case brought by Alvin Bragg, pointing out how the defendant himself is a candidate for the presidency. Today, the government's trying to throw the leading candidate for president in prison on bogus charges in a city stacked with far-left jurors, wrote Robbie Starbuck on X. Look, I mean, they have to do it. I don't think that Merchan is stupid enough. He's not a stupid man. He's a conniving man. But I don't think he's stupid enough to send Trump to jail, even in a symbolic way for you got to spend one night in jail. I don't think he'll do that. because I think he knows that would then make him a martyr. And look, people already think this trial is unfair. If you send Trump to jail, it will send him to the White House is what it will do. I really do believe that. And by the way, if he's convicted, he gets automatic appeal, and there's all kinds of reversible error in this particular trial. So, what it may be, if he has a bad day here with this jury in New York and this particular judge, please know that, there is going to be a right to an appeal. And generally what happens is if you ask for an appeal, they don't put you in jail. But who knows? This judge, he's unpredictable, he's crazy, and he's definitely a partisan. 22 past the hour now.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Coming up at 5:30, we hear about conservative Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. We got an active investigation here in Tennessee and hundreds of flights being canceled again in the U.S. We'll tell you where, we'll tell you why. 5:30, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
My buttons are working.
spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
It's time for Mac Maury's wide, wacky, weird, wonderful world of sports. And now, without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, who gets really excited over arcane sports statistics. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen. Woo!
Oh, yeah. Bringing all the arcane statistics right here every day. Gets the juices flowing.
Well, I mean, it's really the truth about this is that, you really do like those arcane sports statistics the same way I like arcane political statistics.
Yes, yes.
It all works out. It's fun.
We're all nerds in our own way. You got to find it.
We really, truly are.
Speak for yourselves.
Okay, so again, a mixed bag here. We talked a little bit earlier about Scotty Scheffler. Louisville has dropped those charges. If you're just now hearing about this for the first time, this was during the U.S. Open or during the PGA Championship there. Scotty Scheffler was arrested right before, I believe it was Friday's round or day of the match there. And he was on his way to play and got arrested because he was kind of going through an area, had a misunderstanding with directing traffic, and they're saying he corroborated some evidence and stuff like that. And now they've dropped the charges. There's a cop hanging onto his car saying, "Hey, please stop. And he's going 2 miles an hour. He's like, yo, what's going on? What's happening? Mugshot, the whole thing. They did end up dropping those charges. They were going to bring that to court. They were going to bring that to trial. They probably would have won. Scheffler, that is. So good thing there. That's all now done and behind us. So Scotty in the clear, no longer a criminal. So that's good. A little bit of a misunderstanding there. And then we got a vault for life. Juwan Jennings, wide receiver for the 49ers and a former star for Tennessee when I was in school, just got a new contract. This will pay him $15.4 million. It's a 2-year deal. It's 10.5 guaranteed. This is a guy who, isn't faster, isn't stronger, doesn't jump higher than anyone else, but he's physical. He shows up. He knows his routes. He's in the right spot at the right time. He's reliable for Brock Purdy, was reliable for Jimmy Garoppolo. He was reliable for give me a second here. Iowa quarterback right before Garoppolo. Can't quite remember it. Not yet in the NFL or not successful yet anymore. He's been successful now for 3 different quarterbacks. He's been reliable. He's been there. And so, Juwan, good to see him kind of get a contract here, get some real money. This is a guy, again, who's just earned every step of the way and was a huge star for Tennessee when there wasn't a lot to talk about in Tennessee football. He showed up. And he's been a part of some legendary plays. So it's good to see him kind of get some recognition there. Showed up in the playoffs last year. Showed up in the Super Bowl last year when it seemed like the 49ers couldn't find any offense. It was Juwan Jennings, their 3rd, maybe 4th option, really, on offense. And if you want to count the running back, their 5th option on offense showed up for them. And so Juwan Jennings, part of a deep team, they still saw it valuable to pay him. And that says a lot. That's maybe the most talented roster in the NFL. They don't need him on the team, but they said, you know what? We do want him here. So
it's good when a good guy, who's somebody who really, plays the game well and has discipline about the way he approaches the game, does well. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, especially a Tennessee product. And then last night I talked about those overtime games in hockey. We had another one. That's now 3 overtime games in a row between the Panthers and the Rangers. The Panthers get the better of the Rangers this time after the Rangers had won the previous 2 overtime matchups. That tied the series at 2-2. And then you've got the Stars and the Edmonton Oilers tonight in Edmonton. 7:30, that series, Dallas leading 2-1. And Minnesota not done yet. Get the brooms back in the closet. Minnesota still alive, beating Dallas in Game 4. They'll come back to Minnesota in Game 5. We'll see if they can stretch it to 6. No one's ever come back in over 150 series in the NBA playoffs. 150 series in the NBA playoffs. No one's ever come down 3-0. Minnesota going to try and make history there in the NBA.
All right. Well, with that, it's time to take off the sports hat and put on your vibrantly orange news hat, or maybe it's your sports hat that's vibrantly orange. But anyway, it's time for the news at 5:30.
.531, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 77 degrees here in Nashville. Traffic and weather on the way in 5 minutes. Conservative Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito says he can't and won't recuse himself from January 6 related cases. That after reports about the flags that have been seen flying outside his homes. Stephen Portnoy.
In letters to congressional Democrats, Justice Samuel Alito insists he didn't even know the American flag was flying upside down outside his Northern Virginia home until it was called to his attention. Alito says he asked his wife to take it down, but, quote, for several days she refused. Alito also says his wife was solely responsible for flying the Appeal to Heaven flag over the couple's beach house on the Jersey Shore. He says the old historic flag was never intended to associate the Alitos with the Stop the Steal movement.
An active investigation here in Tennessee. Murfreesboro police searching for a suspect who's accused of stealing a car and vandalizing a room at MTSU last week. Surveillance footage caught a man going through items in a vehicle. That same day, saw him in an MTSU parking lot near the Fairview building. It was vandalized with a rock. Officials ask that you call police if you have any information. And hundreds of flights canceled again in the U.S. because of thunderstorms hitting a major airline hub. Alex Stone reports.
Thunderstorms have brought extreme wind in Dallas and Houston, caused problems for passengers on mainly American and Southwest Airlines on Tuesday. Over 1,100 flights were canceled in the U.S., mainly because of those storms, and 7,600 flights were delayed. Today, again, Dallas-Fort Worth is leading the nation in flight cancellations with more rain hitting the area. American Airlines has the most canceled flights today of any airline in the world.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices.
You know, Grace Point Healthcare is the standard for affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine. How does it work? Well, as a direct pay provider, your healthcare is delivered without the red tape of an insurer's guidelines. Smart Care plans make it even more affordable. They start at $69 a month. You get free office visits and basic labs for the entire year. Now, Grace Point identifies and treats the root cause of a condition, not just the symptoms, utilizing a comprehensive and functional approach. And by usually seeing you the same day or the next day, you're treated at your convenience. Grace Point Healthcare, affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. They are located on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 615-599-6868. That's 599-6868 to set up your first appointment. Let's head up to the swamp. That's right. I'll tell you how things are going on in that mucky, goopy, nasty, swampy place they call the nation's capital. After 31 years there, I tell you what, sometimes when you're in it, you can't see it for what it is. When you get out, you have a clearer view, and I think I can help you understand, having worked there for so long. Man, I'm telling you what, I'll be honest with you, when I start talking about the days in Washington, I almost have sort of like a PTSD reaction. Please don't ever make me go back there. All right, so this story about Samuel Alito, an associate justice of the Supreme Court, people don't know that. There's one Supreme Court Chief Justice, and then everybody else who serves on the High Court is technically an associate justice of the Supreme Court. I don't know, people don't make that distinction, but that is the proper title for someone who is not the Chief Justice, is Associate Justice Alito. Anyway, the Democrats have been going after him, and they went after Clarence Thomas recently over a bunch of nothing, and that didn't go anywhere. And now they've been going after Alito because apparently there was a flag incident at his house. They were flying the American flag upside down. I say they. Alito, they said that he should recuse himself over cases that involved January 6th or immunity or anything like that, which is being considered by the High Court right now because he was showing a sign of sympathy for the Trump, stop the steal effort. Well, a couple of members have written to him saying you should recuse yourself. People like Dick Durbin, the most accurately named senator in the United States Senate. And he has written them back saying, I'm not doing that. You're crazy. Alito wrote in a pair of letters to members of Congress that he had nothing to do with the flags that were flown over his home, including an upside-down American flag he said his wife Martha Ann flew as part of a dispute with neighbors in Alexandria, Virginia. The two incidents you cite do not meet the conditions for recusal. I therefore have an obligation to sit for the cases, Alito wrote to Senate Judiciary Chairman Dick Durbin and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, both who have called for his recusal from the pending cases. And then he adds this, and any husband listening, especially if you're married to a very strong-willed woman, I mean, I know a little something about that. I had nothing whatsoever to do with flying that flag. I was not even aware of the upside-down flag until it was called to my attention. As soon as I saw it, I asked my wife to take it down, but for several days she refused. Oh, do I get that? I certainly understand that. Alito wrote noting that their own home, they own it jointly, and that she has a legal right to use the property as she sees fit. Of course, you know, the upside-down flag long been known as a signal to indicate distress, but it had been used by those protesting former President Trump's loss in 2020 and became associated with the Stop the Steal movement. But it had nothing to do with that at all. It had to do with a neighborhood dispute. Supreme Court ethics codes say justices should not make political statements in order to preserve their impartiality on matters that arrive before the court. So the Supreme Court is set to rule on a pair of key cases in the coming week related to the January 6th attack, including whether Trump has immunity from prosecution. See, what the Democrats are trying to do here is diminish the conservative majority to make perhaps whatever ruling comes out of them seem less, authoritative. And quite frankly, the Democrats want to pack the court. They want to find excuses to add more members to the high court so that while they're in charge, they would sort of pack the court with a bunch of liberal jurists to even up the balance, because right now it's a 6-3 conservative court. And it could change. It could even become a 7-2 conservative court, depending on how things play out. What's interesting about this particular thing is apparently a story that ran earlier on in the Washington Post said that they looked into this some time ago. A story that ran on May 16th said that it had recently obtained photographs of the Post in its own story Saturday. This is where I want to pick it up. The Post in its own story Saturday said it had been told of the story in January of 21 and investigated choosing not to write about it because it appeared Alito's wife was responsible and that it was not clear the neighborhood argument was over politics. It's warring with your neighbors. Your wife got thing going. She flies the flag upside down. You tell her take it down, and she doesn't do it. Again, every husband I know can identify with this particular story. Apparently, Catherine Barr, the Post senior managing editor during the fraught presidential transition, said he took responsibility for the decision. He said he suggested the newspaper write about the neighborhood dispute with the flag as one element, but that wasn't done, and Barr expressed regret for not pushing harder for it. Barr left the Post in 2023. Kathleen Culver, director of the Center for Journalism Ethics at the University of Wisconsin, said the original decision was a bad call. And she added that if she were at the Post now, she would have argued for the paper to be more forthcoming. You know, I'm going to give you a little deep, dark secret about being a reporter in Washington, D.C. It even works on the local level. A reporter who covers a beat, like the Supreme Court, where it's hard to get information, doesn't want to do anything that unnecessarily angers a member of the high court, because they want to have friendly relationships, because the one thing as a reporter you don't want is for everybody to get some story and you don't get it. And the way that happens is if you alienate the people that you are covering. When I was a police reporter, there were times where stories crossed my threshold. I'll be honest with you about this. I'm not particularly proud of it, but you had to stop and run this calculation in your head. All right, I could do this story, and it'll be a one-day explosive story, or maybe it's not that big a story, but it will irritate people. One way or the other, if I irritate people, then I'm not going to be called the next time there's something important that I need to know, but my competitors are. And I'm going to look like an idiot because I'm the only reporter on the beat who didn't seem to know anything about it. I'm sorry, that's the way reporters think, and it's the way it works. So I would run a calculation. Is this story so important that I cannot turn my back on it? And sometimes they would be not big stories, but things are just going to irritate them. And you get to think, well, is this worth it? I ran that calculation. And I hate to say that, but sometimes I decide, that's small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. And I would often find out about. I remember a story that I did one time where, and it was one of these things where it was just bizarre. There was an accident. It was a car accident, and apparently our cameras picked up the EMTs who were called to the car accident handing a vial of blood from one of the people who was the driver of the car to a highway patrolman. And then they charged the guy with being drunk because they had the blood. But the guy on the scene did not voluntarily give up his blood. It was taken from him by a paramedic from where he was bleeding. So they took a sample of his blood and handed it to the DPS officer. Well, that's not legal. You can't do that. And when we looked at the tape, it was very clear what was going on. And so I decided, do I want to do this story? And I didn't do the story. A supervisor, and I said, we've got tape. And, and I don't think that you would agree that this was the proper thing to happen, is it? And he was aghast. The supervisor was aghast. How did that happen? I said, well, we've got it on tape. And he said, well, give me a minute. And then he apparently called back a few minutes later and said, that's all being taken care of, and it will never happen again. And we've been told, we've made it very clear to every officer on the force that we will not use it in this particular case, and that we will never use this procedure again, where a paramedic takes blood from a bleeding victim and gives it to the police department. So I thought, well, I could do that story, but it's been resolved. Do I really need to do that story? Because if I do the story, no state trooper would ever help me out when I was working on a story, ever. And you needed their support and to some degree their assistance when you're covering the police beat. So that's an example. Same thing here. I think that the Washington Post took a look at this story and they said, look, it's a small thing. It looks like it's a neighborhood dispute. Let's not rile everybody up over something when it seems that it's not really a big deal. And I think those calculations are made in the news business all the time. I don't think this was a big story, and I think the story is more interesting that Alito can't get his wife to take down something that is sort of a problem for him, even when he asked her a couple of times, will you take that thing down, and she wouldn't do it. I think that's an interesting story, but it doesn't have anything to do with Trump. Well, I went way off on the tangent there, didn't I? In other news, the U.S. military now says that we heard this story a few days ago about how the Russians are putting up space nukes. And the question is, what is it for? Apparently to take out other satellites if need be. And here comes this. The Associated Press, John Kirby, the White House national security spokesman, said this is not an active capability, but now they say we have a countermeasure for it. And that if they decide to do that, we have a way to counteract what they have done. The weapon is currently not in operation, and if deployed and powered with nuclear technology, it would violate the International Outer Space Treaty, but that doesn't mean anything to the Russians. But they say they have demonstrated previously an effective countermeasure to a potential Russian space nuke. Good to know. Here's another story that I think that is underreported that we need to talk about. We now know that Biden had a bunch of private pseudonym email accounts, even as president and vice president. Biden received sensitive data briefing from security advisors via his private pseudonym email. Under the law, such communications are supposed to occur on secure government email systems, and to date, Biden has not offered any explanation why his private email account was used. The archives say it has tens of thousands of such emails from 3 Biden personal pseudonym accounts used during his vice president. And when he was vice president, Joe Biden received sensitive communications via his private email accounts created under a fictitious identity, including foreign policy discussions with his national security advisor, schedules of meeting with cabinet secretaries, and a summary of at least one intelligence briefing to President Barack Obama, according to new emails obtained by Just the News. Yeah, that's a serious violation. I mean, the reason is you don't use private email accounts is that they're easily hacked. And trust me, these intelligence agencies that we compete against around the world, the Russians, the Chinese, and a host of others, even some of them are our allies, no doubt were reading every email just like they read Hillary Clinton's private emails. They're very good at this. And so that's a real big story. However, you don't find much reported on it. The new memos were released by the National Archives over the Memorial Day holiday weekend under the Freedom of Information Act. See, they do it on a holiday weekend when nobody's paying attention. Brought by the Southeastern Legal Foundation on behalf of Just the News that sought emails that Biden received or transmitted as vice president using his Robinware 456 Gmail account. You think they didn't hack into that? They were reading everything on that account. While none of the newly released emails had classification markings on them, several included sensitive information transmitted over an insecure Google email account that would be of value to foreign powers and hostile spy agencies. Why aren't we hearing more about that story? 51 past the hour now. You know, as much as we wish it were true, pills or spinal creams cannot magically open up your spinal disc and take the pressure off your nerves. If your back hurts, it's a problem. And you have 2 choices. You can undergo surgery, undergo the knife, or you can try non-invasive spinal decompression. Now, I chose non-surgical spinal decompression at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I had problems in my neck. I had problems in my lower back. And I'm telling you, it really made a difference for me. They have state-of-the-art facilities and the latest and high-tech equipment to offer the latest non-surgical procedures. Now, getting better is so important that Dr. Kevin Mitchell and Dr. Ashley are offering half off spinal decompression treatments and half off the KT machine, which is sort of like spinal decompression, but it's really aimed at working on your knee. It gently elongates the knee and allows the healing therapy to get deep within the joint. It's really remarkable, and they're like on the cutting edge of that technology. If you're a new patient, here's an offer for you. You can get your exam, consultation, and first treatment for only $23, and you got that on you. You know, I put my stamp of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville. So why don't you call them today at this number, 615-246-5009. Again, that's 615-246-5009. Learn more about all the things they can do for you at the Wellness Institute of Nashville by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
6 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 76 degrees. We got a traffic report and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. They have questions. The jury in Donald Trump's New York criminal trial needed a few clarifications this afternoon, just hours after the historic deliberations began. Aaron Katursky has the latest from the courthouse in Lower Manhattan.
The judge said it would take about a half an hour to read back all of the testimony that the jury requested, and then he asked the jury to think about whether they want to hear his instructions again in their entirety. It took about an hour, 15 minutes the first time, or do they just need a certain part? He asked them to think about it, but he's going to dismiss them for the day, so they'll go home and they'll hear the testimony they want to hear first thing tomorrow, and then they'll inform the judge which part or all of the instructions do they want to hear again, and they'll start right back up with that first thing in the morning.
Right now in Tennessee, arson suspected from a fire in Nashville today. Channel 4 Sharon Takwa fills us in.
So what we're hearing from firefighters, some crews just cleared the scene now, but they have fire investigators here continuing their investigation. But firefighters tell us that the fire started right here in this clothing store right on Nolensville Pike. The store owner told me that one of their employees was inside. She was trying to sell something to a man that walked in. That's when the man lured her to the back. The employee told that the store owner that the man ended up beating her up, just punching her multiple times, and then starting a fire in the back, taking off and leaving with her car. Now, police are now investigating to confirm all of that.
And police say that the woman that was assaulted is in an ambulance. They are still trying to get to the bottom of how this all began. Staying here in Tennessee, a 3D printed home by Azure Printed Homes brought their new tiny home, the X180, to Nashville for showcase this week. It's 180 square feet, is 9 feet by 20 feet, and has one bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. Costs at $49,000. Their N100 comes at a cost of just under $20,000. Azure Printed Homes said their houses are made from 150,000 recycled water bottles and are available nationwide within 4 weeks of ordering. And some entertainment news. The Beatles didn't need any help breaking an auction record. Jason Nathanson.
It's the most expensive Beatles guitar ever sold at auction. A 12-string acoustic guitar used by John Lennon in the recording of the 1965 Help album, seen in the Help film and used in making other Beatles hits in the 1960s, was sold Wednesday by Julian's Auctions for $2.857 million, $400,000 or so more than the previous best-selling Beatles guitar. The instrument was reportedly found in an attic after being lost for over 50 years. The identity of the buyer was not revealed.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive this evening. Still people trying to get home. We get you home safely. So you have dinner. You're getting home early enough. There's plenty of sunshine. You time to, pull some weeds. Maybe you want to mow your yard. No. Weeds are a full-time job around my house. I got weeds, and I can't stand to look at them. So, however, I don't like to get out. I personally do not pull weeds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cabana Wife. I don't know if you saw the posting that I put on social media over the weekend. Cabana Wife she's a beast out in the yard.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was a pressure washer.
Yeah, so she loves to pressure wash. And there is something rather addictive about pressure washing.
Yeah, it can be fun for a little while.
Because you see immediate results. And so I got this big old Honda pressure washer thing. You fire it up and then you hook up the hose, and I don't know how many PSI I get out of it, but it's a lot. And you can clean stuff. And so she was cleaning brick. And so at one point I looked up and she said, "Here, I need you to help me get up on top of this." At the end of our driveway, Chris, I don't know if I can explain this. We have these two little brick walls that sort of are set on either side of our driveway. And they got flower beds in front of them. It's sort of an entryway to the house. And this is where you come in, park your car when you come to visit. And they as with most things made of brick, they're outdoors. Eventually, they get a little dingy, and they have sort of these white capstones on them, and they were looking really dingy. And it's driving her crazy every time she came in. So I look out, and she wants me to help her get up on top of the wall so she can power wash. And this is a woman who literally not long ago fell off a ladder and broke her back.
That's right.
Remember that? Remember when that happened? Boy, that was a scary thing. And so I sort of said, you can't get on ladders anymore. And here she wants to climb up on top of a brick wall so she could do effective power washing. And I helped her. I don't know what I was thinking, but I've learned it doesn't make any to tell her no doesn't do any good.
You just yes, dear, and then gave her a hand.
Well, I got the same problem that Justice Alito has. His wife, his wife doesn't listen to him. And I found another story. I love it. This whole thing about Justice Alito flying the flags. He says, I didn't know anything about the flag. When I finally found out about it, I told my wife, take them down. And she apparently refused to do so for several days. Well, now it's become a thing, and the Democrats are making a bunch of hay out of it. It's not a thing. It really is not a thing. But I love him saying, well, my wife, I told her to take it down, and she doesn't. Here's a new quote. My wife is fond of flying flags, and I am not. Throws his wife under the bus right there in the nation's capital. I so identify, because, look, I'm a rather, type A personality, I think you'd have to say.
Yeah.
Sort of outgoing, sort of, I can be like when I get my head down on something and I get focused in, I'm just sort of a formidable presence at times. And so I need a strong woman in my life to tell me, no, don't do that. And I listen when I'm told no.
Yeah.
The reverse is not always true.
Well, pick your battles, right?
Yes, exactly right. Any married man I know, especially if you're married to a strong-willed woman, and I don't say that in a negative way. She is a strong woman and a formidable presence, and I love that about her. But I do identify at times with Justice Alito, who says, she's my wife, and she does what she wants to do, and he even makes the point that, well, she's a joint owner of this house, so she has the right legally to use the property in some way that she seems fit. But, I just love this. My wife is fond of flying flags. I am not. I could say things like, my wife is fond of, in my house, what is she fond of? That I just look at, I don't know. She's got all these things. Oh, she's fond of filling up the refrigerator to the nth degree, and I am not. I can't find anything in my refrigerator. But I just gave up because the food's still pretty good at my house. So
don't complain.
Again, Pick your battles. Pick your battles. Alito decided not to pick his battle about the flags. And see what happened? See what happened? Anyway. By the way, I said you could get out and do some mowing because it's still light outside. Listen to this story that I found today on WSMV's website. No, you're not seeing things. There are driverless mowers in Franklin City parks. We're seeing self-driving cars and autonomous vacuums. I mean, I got a robo vacuum in my house.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, I end up working on it more than any vacuum I ever had. I mean, it's the most finicky thing I own. And I spend more time repairing that thing and cleaning it so that it operates fine. It'd be easier just to get out the vacuum and do it myself. But I have one. But did you know the city of Franklin uses similar technology to cut the grass in 2 city parks? Through the city's contract with Landscape Services, Inc., if you drive by the park at Harlingsdale Farm on a Thursday or Friday, you could catch a glimpse of their autonomous lawnmowers at work. It will help with maybe a lack of manpower. We know technology is just taking over the world. It's just now making its way to the mowing industry. Williams says the pandemic, his department saw employees leave those positions, were never filled again. While they still maintain countless other city parks, these mowers cut down the need for additional manpower and resources needed in a given week. This is the one repeatable task that it takes a lot of labor, so having machines to do this has allowed us to go out and focus on other things, the detail work, other parts of our contract. Hargrove says they have 6 autonomous mowers in their fleet. He says they wanted to ensure the mowers worked right and the safety measures were fully operational, and the long-term investment was worth it before they bought the next 3. Hargrove says it takes one person to operate 3 of the mowers at a time. After riding a perimeter around the area that they want to be cut, the data is stored for future use, and all the operator has to do is step off and allow the mower to do the rest. That's pretty cool.
That's my kind of mowing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually like mowing. I'm a weird like that because, I got this 0-turn mower over at T.T. McCall's. And that's my favorite thing to do in the whole world is to mow the yard. Sometimes I go out and I'm disappointed because the yard doesn't need to be mowed yet.
You just ride around on it anyway?
Yeah, I do sometimes. I just take a little, I go down to the grocery store and mow just like George Jones.
Like George, yeah.
Yeah, it's like George. No, I don't really. I go down there in my little red buggy. Reusing or reutilizing the workforce we have, allowing them to focus on their duties. He said it took time for the public to adjust seeing the mowers. We get a lot of calls at our office saying, hey, there's a mower operating out of the park and there's nobody on it. Nobody's on the seat.
That would be it's got a seat. Oh, that would be concerning to see that.
You get on the seat and you do the first round to train it, and then you jump off and it does the rest, I guess. The mower has multiple ways of shutting down in case of an emergency. Sort of like your robo vacuum is supposed to work. I mean, my robo vacuum just bounces into things.
Yeah, mine's not real smart.
It's not real smart. If movement or an object is detected in front of the mower, it will automatically stop where it is and the blades will turn off. If that doesn't happen, the operator watching over the mower has a manual kill switch in their hand to override the machine if necessary. Williams says to date, no injuries or incidents have been reported since they rolled out the mowers. The only hitch is the mowers need to mow in an open space, so not a lot of trees or obstacles can be in the grid that is outlined by the operator. LSI estimators estimate it takes about 1 hour with 3 mowers to cut the grass in a field that's comparable to the size of a football field. How about that? I think that would be cool, but I mean, I got too many trees and too many flower beds and things that have to be, finessed.
Yeah, me too. And I guess it's because they're larger, they're large mowers. But I've seen the robot ones that you can buy for residential use, and they're much smaller. I would assume they'd be able to handle more obstacles.
Yeah, I got 2 acres, and I can do it in 45 minutes.
That's not too bad.
It's not bad, really. I mean, you figure 2 acres in 45 minutes. Of course, there's a big house and pool in the middle of that 2 acres, so it's not all grass.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I can do it in about 45 minutes. I got a 1/2 acre that's off to the side of my house that it's really sort of more of a field, but I mow it. But my big problem right now is weeds, because I don't like to pull weeds.
And more can't help you there, can it?
No. A Cabana wife says that she started pulling weeds in the front, and then she stopped. Allegedly, the story is that there's a bird that has a nest, and she didn't want the mama coming out and chasing her away.
Okay.
Now, I've never seen said bird, but she claims it's there. And she said it's, she doesn't want to be chased out every time she gets down there. I don't want her pecking on my head, she says.
That's understandable.
We got more birds growing on it. We got 3 different nests going in our house right now. We got the baby cardinals, which are right outside my window, which I've been doing regular updates. They're getting bigger every day. It's fun to watch them because I can just literally go to the window and peek out, and there they are, right there outside my window. And then we have and she had an herb garden, one of those raised herb gardens, that people grow their own herbs. She likes to grow fresh herbs, and so she's got that. And there's some kind of bird nest in there. And we have not yet gotten a good look at that. We know there's a mama. There were 4 or 5 eggs in there. They haven't hatched yet, but she's in there. We go by and look at her every day. She's right. We can't move all the things out in Grogu's garden that we want to move because we don't want to disturb the mama and the babies in the nest, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is this alleged nest that's in the front of the house.
You have not been shown any proof of this one yet?
Well, I've never seen the bird. No. I mean, she claims it's there. And so in the meantime, we got weeds that need to be pulled, and we can't pull weeds because apparently there's an alleged bird in a nest that she's afraid of. Boy, I'm going to get it to dinner tonight.
You're not going to get dinner tonight.
That's probably true. Yeah, what are you doing for dinner, Brian? I had dinner while you were on the air. I wish you had something to eat there for dinner, Brian. No. I mean, honestly, though, making this thing full circle, I really do. I do understand what Justice Alito is going through. I mean, he at the time didn't think twice about it. Somebody said, "Why is the flag flying upside down in front of you?" I said, "What?" He looks up and he said, "What is my wife up to? What has she done now?" And, if some kind of argument with the neighbors is what it was all about. And he says, "Would you take that down?" And then he walks away and he assumes that it'll be taken down. And he comes back a couple of days later and it's still up. And so he says, I asked her to take it down and she didn't take it down. Every married man at some point has had a similar discussion. And I think I like her, though. I like somebody who'll get into a good fight with the neighbors,
Yeah.
I have wonderful neighbors. Honestly, they're just delightful people here in Watertown. But, I mean, I have lived in HOAs where I did not get along too well with some of the neighbors. The infamous flamingo story.
That's right.
When I was down in Florida. That's still, they talk about that in the neighborhood all the time. They're glad that somebody else now owns that house.
I
hear from people,
right?
Yeah, say, no flamingos. This guy actually, improved the house and did nice things with it, unlike the previous owner. But I like somebody who'll get in. If you got a thing going on with the neighbors, I want somebody to be right there with me. Cabana wife is that woman.
Yeah. Better watch what you say then.
But just don't say anything about her refrigerator. She's very touchy about that. 20 minutes now past the hour. The Busy Bee people, they're good people. That they're there for your air conditioning, your heating, your plumbing, any of that kind of stuff that you need done around your house. But really, to get the full benefit of the Busy Bee experience, you need to become a member of the Beehive Club. Now, it starts at $99. And here's what you get. And this is all about preventative maintenance. You get 3 annual tune-ups, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. You get 10% discount on repairs. You get priority front-of-the-line service. You get $100 annual accrued replacement credit where you can build up a credit up to $1,000 over time. No overtime or holiday fees ever, and exclusive Beehive member promotions that you will know about, but your neighbors will not because they're not members of the Beehive Club. Heating and cooling projects, if you have a big heating and cooling project, no interest if paid in full within 15 months. That's with approved credit, of course. Plumbing projects, you get 18 months. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybhvac.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pledging money to another foreign country. We'll tell you what that was. Plus our closing money news report, 6:30 Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
I've heard from as they used to say in my home office.
Oh boy.
Yeah, she's calling on everything that I said in the last segment. She gets home a little about this time. She gets home about 4:30, 5 o'clock, depending on traffic and everything. She likes to sit on the cabana, have a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
She has a friend in Texas, one of her best friends, Donna, who I just adore. She's great. It was Donna who was our officiant at our marriage.
Ah, okay.
And so she talks to Donna almost every day. And so she sits on the porch and has her wine and gazes at the pool and the cicadas, which, by the way, seem to be on the decline at my house.
Good.
I hope so. But and then, so she keeps the radio on in case I start talking about her.
Just in case.
Yeah, she has to keep up with me. And I know this. That's why I chose to pick on her at this particular time of the day. Anyway, she says that I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's complete. Donald Trump says that if he is elected president, he's weighing, according to experts, people who know him, weighing the role of an advisory position for Elon Musk. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? Donald Trump and Elon Musk have discussed a possible advisory role for the Tesla leader should the presumptive Republican nominee reclaim the White House, the latest sign that the once frosty relationship with the two men has thawed. The role hasn't been fully hammered out and might not happen, says people who are familiar with the talks, but the two men discussed ways to give Musk formal input and influence over policies related to border security and the economy, both issues on which Musk has grown more vocal. You know, listen, I tell you what, I think presidents would do well to set up an informal cabinet of people who are from different walks of life, just smart people who have, you know, and brainstorm stuff, people who are not deeply connected with government. You know, Washington's a place where everybody's got an agenda. I think it'd be interesting to talk to people outside and just have an informal, as I think Richard Nixon used to call it, a kitchen cabinet. Just a small group of people that you kind of, you know, shoot the breeze with, you brainstorm ideas, you come up. And Elon Musk would be great in that role. Elon Musk is one of these people who has a brilliant idea. Out of about 1 out of every 10 ideas are brilliant. But he needs somebody, you know, you need somebody who can say to Elon, that one's not really good, but that one might have some merit. You always need that. And I think Trump is that way. Ideas just going everywhere, and he needs people to say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, that probably won't work, but we could do this, and, you know, that's a good place to start. And I think if Trump's smart, he has people like that around him. But I think there's real value in having people from the work world, from a different the entertainment world, whatever it is, to sit down and talk about things that you're not likely to hear those point of views within your own circle of people who are really just a bunch of yes men. I mean, nobody wants to tell the president no. Nobody wants to have that conversation. I think there's real value in this. I hope that he does that. And I think all presidents would really benefit from having those kind of relationships. I mean, Elon Musk, he just thinks outside the box. He thinks his mind operates. It may be that he's, you know, because he's on the autism scale, he is truly autistic. He's admitted as much, somewhere on the spectrum, and so I think his mind just works in a really magical way at times. The way he has analyzing things and go through different ideas, you can see him talking through a thing, and then the light bulb goes off. And again, are all his ideas brilliant? No, I've known a lot of brilliant people who had a lot of ideas, not all of them good. But I think Elon Musk brings you an interesting perspective and a way to look at things, perhaps in a way that have not been thought of within the traditional circles of government. So I think that would be a great idea. I wish every president would take advantage of hearing more voices outside of the White House, and the good ones do. The good ones do. I mean, I think it was Harry Truman. He used to play cards with a whole bunch of different people. Played and you know, was a big card player, poker, I guess. And it was in those sessions where he heard from other people outside of government. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. I hope that he does that. Elon Musk, very interesting cat. I would love if I could sit down with anybody for a dinner or drink a beer with have a couple of beers with somebody. I think I would choose right now Elon Musk, because he's doing radically different things in so many different arenas. 30 minutes now past the hour. Time for the news.
.631, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 74 degrees right now on Music Row. Traffic and a weather forecast in 5 minutes. In a meeting with the Moldova's president, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pledged $135 million in aid to the country. M. Nguyen has more from the nation's capital.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken opened a visit to Eastern Europe with a stop in Chisinau, Moldova's capital, announcing $85 million of U.S. aid to support the country's power grid. Blinken said the administration is working with Congress on another $50 million to go to Moldova's energy and agriculture and efforts to counter Russian disinformation.
The partnership that we have to reduce Moldova's dependence on Russian energy, to enhance connectivity with Europe, to increase the use of renewables, all of that is moving forward.
Now over to our closing money news, Daria Albinger.
Stocks plunged under the weight of higher yields in the bond market. The Dow fell 411 points, the S&P closed down 39, and the Nasdaq gave up 99. Higher Treasury yields hurt prices for all kinds of investments, but they can pack a particularly hard punch for stocks. American Airlines Group led a slump for airline stocks after it cut its forecast for profit and other financial targets for the spring. 3 black men are suing American, claiming they were discriminated against when they were ordered to leave a plane that was about to take off from Phoenix back in January. ConocoPhillips is buying Marathon Oil in an all-stock deal worth over just $17 billion. Nissan is warning the owners of about 84,000 older vehicles to stop driving them because their Takata airbag inflators are at high risk of exploding during a crash. A number of models from a number of model years are affected. You can see which ones are included on the company's website.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
You know, how many times have you heard someone describe something as being the gold standard? Well, when it comes to finding an investment that protects you from runaway inflation, gold is the gold standard. It's a tried and true store of value consistent across generations. Maybe you've thought about adding gold or other precious metals to your portfolio, but you feel like you don't really have the knowledge you need to make a smart decision. Now, that's the way I felt, but I got the professional guidance I needed at Nashville Gold and Coin. It works this way. You make a one-on-one appointment, and you sit down with my friends at Nashville Gold, and they will answer all your questions and help you make the precious metals investment that's right for you. It's friendly. You're going to learn a ton, and you will never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. Gold and silver can be a safe haven in uncertain economic times, and my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. To set up that one-on-one appointment, just go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. Again, that's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
37 minutes now past the hour. We got about 22 minutes and change to go before we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one, who will continue on through the evening, as he will carry on. He does. He tends to carry on. Schumer has said the secret part out loud about all the migrants that are coming into this country. You know, you wonder why, if Joe Biden could stop this with a phone call and a signature, but he doesn't. Executive orders are what got us in this mess, and executive orders can undo the mess, but he chooses not to do that, and you wonder why. Well, I've always suspected this. I used to get yelled at by my friends on the left when I would say things like, it's all about bringing more voters into this country. They want to find as many people into this country, then turn them into voters, and then they will change the demographics of this country for years and years to come, because they're bringing all these people in, and you think that they're going to be very thankful being led in by Joe Biden, and they'll vote for him, or for Democrats in general. And they said, no, you're nuts, Wilson. There's been no evidence of that. Well, yes, there is. Chuck Schumer said so. It's what it's all about.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are.
Here it is. And boy, the Democrats behind him were whooping it up. They're completely supportive of this idea. So really, it is what it's all about. And I don't see how they can do that for the coming election. But honestly, as we have discussed on this program many times, there are ways that you can be an illegal immigrant and still vote in this election. Now, it's not legal to do that, but I mean, there are, the system's not set up to find people who are willing to abuse the system. You can get a driver's license, and when you get your driver's license, they ask you a question: are you a legal citizen? They don't ask for any proof. And if you lie on that form, then you can get the driver's license that then entitles you's got the little star on it that says then you can go down there and use that to get a voter registration card. And you can vote. And how would anybody figure that out? It's going to be impossible. Because, the poll watchers can't do anything about it. Even if they suspect it, they can't stop you and pull you out of line and keep you from voting. It's just, but it does happen. It does happen. And so, don't discount the possibility that a great number of people that came to this country illegally are going to make their way to the polls. There are ways around it that all you have to do is sort of tell a little fib when you go to get your driver's license. The Democrats are freaking out, and there was a big story in Politico. They put 5 reporters on the story to go talk to people who are Democrat operatives about, where the polls are, because the polls are not looking very good for Joe Biden, and they're looking increasingly good each day for Donald Trump. For example, here's a poll from today. Virginia. Well, a lot of people rolled their eyes when Donald Trump said, I think I can compete in Virginia. He said that same thing about New Jersey. He said the same thing, I think it was about Minnesota, which, a lot of people look at that one and say, I don't know, that's a pretty heavy lift to Mr. President, but maybe he knows something we don't know. Virginia, Roanoke College. The two-way race between Biden and Trump is a tie, according to Roanoke College in their poll. The 5-way has Biden up by 2, but that's within the margin of error. In other words, it is true, if this poll is correct, that Trump is in the hunt in Virginia. Now, I've always thought that Virginia was an interesting state. It used to be sort of red, then it became sort of purplish, and then it became increasingly blue. But I think that there are a great number of conservatives, and I think the winds are beginning to work in places like Virginia. And here, North Carolina, I got a story about North Carolina, where they have now said that the governor's race there is a toss-up, and that's been a real surprise. And I think there are trends at play in some of these states like Virginia, North Carolina, et cetera, that might normally be Democrat states that might flip. If you flip Virginia, and you get North Carolina. You don't even need the Rust Belt states of Michigan and Pennsylvania and Minnesota. You can win it. You can get your 270 electoral votes by picking off a couple of those. So, I mean, he's doing well in Arizona, doing well in Nevada, doing well in Georgia, and doing well in North Carolina now, apparently, and Virginia. He's in the hunt in Virginia. Wouldn't that be something? Wow. And the other thing is now Biden has to defend those states that he normally wouldn't even have to bother with. He's got to defend it. And I think it's very interesting. Something is going out. And the Democrats are in full freakout, according to this article. And there's been more people who have been writing about it. This is from redstate.com. A quick check of the polling averages showed that Biden has only led in one of the last 8 polls, with the president posting just a single-point advantage, according to Quinnipiac. Given the dynamics of the Electoral College, which suppose a 3 to 4 point lead would be necessary for Biden to prevail, that's simply not going to cut it. No Democrat wants to be the only one to admit it publicly, though they all know it. And I think this is probably true. They don't want to be the person out front, but when you talk on background and given anonymity, here's what they say. You don't want to be that guy who's on the record saying we're doomed or the campaign's bad or Biden's making mistakes. Nobody wants to be that guy, said a Democrat operative in close touch with the White House who was granted anonymity in order to speak freely. But Biden's stubbornly poor polling and the stakes of this election are creating the freakout. And then the person who wrote this column said, let's be honest about what really has Democrats losing their minds at the moment. It's not this that Biden is lagging in the polls due to his terrible tenure as president. It's that their lawfare gambit appears to be failing. It's not just the possibility of conviction backfiring that has them needing smelling salts, though. Democrats are facing other outcomes that could prove catastrophic. He said several months before I wrote before this writing, I made a case that no one seemed to be considering what would happen if Trump avoided a conviction. I think there's a possibility of conviction. I still don't think it matters, just between you and me, because people don't see that for what it is. It's rigged. And the president's made a good point of pointing that out, and I think people think it's unfair process. I think if he gets a conviction and spends 1 hour in jail, it will ensure his election, is what I think. It would almost be worth it to spend an overnight in jail. I can see the judge doing something like that. If there's a conviction, something symbolic, you're going to have to spend a night in jail. You're going to have to be booked. You're going to have to wear the orange coveralls. I say that's all good and fine, because that would absolutely ensure a victory. One other poll, did I mention it? Michigan, everybody's looking at Michigan. Boy, you need Michigan if you're going to win. Mitchell Research, two-way Trump and Biden, you Trump up by 2. 5-way, Trump up by 1. So there you go. That's pretty interesting stuff. Here's another thing about Pennsylvania. New data from Ad Impact show that $71.3 million has been spent on campaign ads for the 24 election so far. Democrats spending about $50 million, and Republicans spending about $22. But a good bunch of that money has been spent in Pennsylvania because the Keystone State remains very much a toss-up. It is slowly trending toward former President Donald Trump, who leads President Joe Biden by 2.3 points in the Real Clear Politics average of polls in that state. This is an average of polls, not just one poll. Trump's lead was bolstered last week by a poll from the Cook Political Report, which showed him up by 3. That's a very respected poll, by the way. Except for a few brief periods, including a one-day spike in February, Trump has held on to a modest lead in Pennsylvania since Real Clear Politics began tracking results in the state. And if we stripped out the results from left-leaning pollster Susquehanna, even those short-lived upticks would be erased. The Biden campaign is in a panic over the results in Pennsylvania, and with good reason. The state could well decide the presidential race. If Trump holds all the states he won in 2020, wins the swing states where he's now decisively ahead, Arizona up by 4 in the Real Clear Politics average, Georgia up by 4 in the average, Nevada up by 5.3 in the average, and then captures Pennsylvania, he will return to the White House. And that's why they're freaking out over Michigan. I mentioned North Carolina. The nonpartisan Cook Political Report on Tuesday shifted the closely watched gubernatorial race in North Carolina from lean Democrat to toss-up, attributing the change to the GOP candidate's impressive fundraising market. Now, this is about the gubernatorial race. In the last century, only 3 Republicans have been elected to serve as the governor of the state. But they were going lean Democrat. Now they're saying it's a toss-up. And I think part of it has to do with these impressive numbers that Trump is putting up. Something is going on in the state of North Carolina, a shift. And I think it may be happening in Virginia, too, which is right next door, of course. Something is happening. There seems to be this subtle shift in some of these places that you would think would be red, but they're not red. You would think that Virginia would be a red state because it's in the South, but it's not. It's a purple state at best. And so, but something's happening there where Trump has got a tie going, according to the latest polling. And then you got North Carolina, where now the gubernatorial race is a real toss-up, and it wasn't expected to be. And I think it has something to do with the coattails of Donald Trump, where he's doing very well in North Carolina, and Joe Biden is decidedly not doing very well. Pretty interesting stuff there, I think. So, again, I look at all of these things, and I don't look at one poll and say, this is the end-all and be-all poll. I look at every poll, and I see if there's a trend. And I look at, so if you got 3 or 4 polls that are showing roughly the same thing, then you have higher confidence that, this is something that's real. Honestly, everything that I look at right now suggests to me that Trump is in a great place, and the Democrats have every reason to be freaking out because their guy is not doing well in the polls, and he's looking weak everywhere he goes. And, I think that's why the Democrats wanted one debate real early and one relatively late in the process, because I think if Biden washes out in the first debate, he's toast. Now, at this point, he has to make that call. And that means that if that happens, he'll say something like, well, I feel like I can win, but I really have realized that I'm missing a step. It'll have to come from him, but he'll be pressured to make that statement. It's 50 minutes now past the hour. URFARB has a very different business philosophy. They staff all their locations with more staff than the average auto repair shop, just so you can be ready when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how hard it could be to get a right-now appointment for vehicle repair? Some dealers, you can wait 2 weeks just to get an appointment, but not at URFARB. They offer quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999. Plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now, not 2 weeks from now. If you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, why don't you call URFARB? Owner Aaron Stokes, good guy, says we will never be too busy for our customers. We are here to take their pain away and do it now. URFARB repairs all European cars, and URFARB says yes to speedy repairs when others can't or won't. Family owned for some 24 years. Call 844-URFARB or visit myurafix.com. That's myurafix.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionality, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.